Chapter 160. Gu Nan's whole body stiffened for a moment, but then he returned to normal, but a shadow body had already quietly floated far away, ready for him to switch places at any time. It seems that you really don't want to see me. The smile on Zhuo's face was still the same, half normal and half twisted. A rank 3 main body? That's surprising. Rank 3? You surprise me too. Gu Nan raised his eyebrows slightly, looking at the guy in front of him, who looked extraordinary from his appearance to his aura. Slightly different from what he saw in the dungeon, Zhuo in reality could no longer be described as a little boy. Because his left and right sides were completely equal, but completely different. The body on the left was completely a blonde girl, not only with half a sun hat on her head, but even she was wearing a pure white dress. The one on the right was still the peaceful-looking boy, who seemed to be a combination of two people. There's nothing to be surprised about. Zhuo smiled and said, "Those who have been to beyond the heavens know what ranks are." Beyond the heavens, Gu Nan was silent for a while, then he yawned and returned to his chair. "Just say what you want," Gu Nan said casually. He was not stupid enough to ask nonsense like, "How did you get here?" Obviously, she would not tell the truth. "I want a place in all of your small worlds in the future." Zhuo's two faces showed a strange smile at the same time, and she said in a low voice, "That's it." Gu Nan's expression didn't change at all. In his opinion, this condition was not a condition at all. After all, the other party was a rank 5 or even higher existence. Perhaps it was not her main body that had arrived, but it was enough to completely suppress him. In this case, Gu Nan did not want to bet on whether he had a chance to escape. Zhuo did not comment. When she was about to speak, her expression suddenly changed, and her figure instantly disappeared, leaving only a sentence echoing. "After you reach rank 4, come to the central star field, and someone will pick you up." This Star Lord level powerhouse disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye, as if she had never been there. A strange smile appeared on Gu Nan's face. 3 days later, Gu Nan sat quietly in the yard, looking through the information in his hand. This was the news sent by White Mist. As for the 3 Starlords in the dungeon, only the name Qiuwenran had some clues, but it was pitifully little. All they knew was that he was an expert who had made a name for himself several thousand years ago. Furthermore, he was active outside of the astral plane, so they could only find some scattered records of him. While they knew that such a person existed, there was no way to investigate his deeds. Purple Will, from the name to the identity, did not leave a single trace. Zhuo, on the other hand, didn't have any information related to his name, but his strange appearance allowed the people in the White Mist to find some traces of him. That was a legend that had been passed down since ancient times. It was a story from the time when the Central Star region had just risen and was gradually expanding outward. At that time, the Central Star region was in a period of rapid technological development. The local system was under attack, and there were many Frankenstein monsters. There was an evil doctor who was obsessed with human fusion experiment. When he was wanted by the Federation and had nowhere else to go, he resolutely chose to fuse his son and daughter together as materials. The fusion of siblings of the same origin? I don't know if it's true or just a joke. Gu Nan rubbed his chin and pondered. After all, this was just an ancient legend. After tens of thousands of years of evolution, he was afraid that it had already changed beyond recognition. After thinking about it, he finally put the information aside. It would be best if he could find out where Zhuo came from, but it was not a big deal if he couldn't. He didn't have any conflict with him. Instead, they had common interests, so there was no need to worry. However, there was another piece of news from the White Mist, which made Gu Nan frown. The King of the Deep Sea had chosen to send people to planet Xianhuang to secretly investigate his whereabouts. As expected, no one who could become a rank 4 big shot was a fool. Previously, with the epaulette that Qin Xuanji obtained, she didn't kill him in one blow. This time, she didn't leave any flaws. His main body had returned to the astral plane, which meant that he could personally take action through the medium at any time. This was no longer a blow that contained part of his power, but an attack from the main body of a rank 4 expert. Once I come face to face with the people he sends, I'm afraid that I will immediately attract a rank 4 attack. It seems that I still need to hide for a while. Gu Nan's consciousness looked at the evil god's temple. His sin value had reached 455 points, and the growth rate was obviously much faster. It seemed that locking Lan Si up and making her practice hard was effective. It could also be that the previous experience of being seriously injured had stimulated her. Casually destroying the scroll with the information, Gu Nan slowly got up and opened the private instance again. It was already the time that they had agreed on. In the depths of the endless starry sky, in a hidden and deep palace, there seemed to be inexhaustible starlight around the palace. In this eternal palace there was a faint red light, starting from the top of the palace all the way to the bottom. Until the red light slowly spread out, even the stars had to retreat. A figure walked out of the palace. It was a woman in red. She was not tall, but her eyebrows were full of a heroic spirit, and her red hair hung down like a blood-colored waterfall. She stood on the endless stars, and after a long time she sighed softly. "He's back, Your Majesty." A voice came from behind the woman in red. It was a middle-aged man wrapped in a red robe. "Do you want us to search the entire realm? You won't be able to find him." The woman shook her head lightly. "Tell Shui Yen to go to the 6-star region and find a little guy named Redtail." "Yes, Your Majesty." The middle-aged man responded and then said, "Your Majesty, Redtail of the Bloodline clan is the descendant of Senior Qingqiu." Redtail did have a certain amount of weight in the eyes of some big figures, and even the middle-aged man remembered her. "So it's her. How interesting." A smile appeared on the woman's face, which looked no different from an ordinary person's. The descendant of Qingqiu found out about her sworn enemy. Did she expose her identity, or did someone secretly arrange it? The woman in red didn't speak anymore. She just stood on the palace and looked down at the billions of stars. Of course, Gu Nan didn't know that his asking Redtail to find out about some people had attracted the attention of a real big figure. Even if he knew, he would probably complain that he was wronged. After all, he had sent the message first, and Zwa had only just appeared. However, he didn't have the time to pay attention to this. After reopening the private instance of Splendid World, Purple Will and Chiu Wenran quickly followed the coordinates, but Zwa disappeared. Chapter 161. What's going on? Is there no internet at home? Gu Nan complained in words that only he could understand. Zwa had actually disappeared. It was obvious that the astral world was more important to him than this dungeon. What he said about bringing him along for all future dungeons was obviously just a stalling tactic. He didn't care about that at all. Maybe he ran into some trouble. Let's begin. Purple Will didn't seem to feel anything and said calmly. Gu Nan obviously didn't have any objections. With their strength, this dungeon was completely over the limit. If it wasn't for the system's restrictions, they could have just crushed it. The blood-colored countdown in the air appeared again. They had to start the dungeon again. Fortunately, with the experience from the first time, it was a walk in the park. Gu Nan once again succeeded in the first stage of parkour. Ha 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 ha. I didn't think that I would hide here for 20 years. A familiar laughter sounded. Purple Will said, "I'll do it this time." As she said this, she suddenly leaped into the air. The entire sky was instantly filled with purple stars, which then smashed towards the Blood Guard one by one. This murderous look scared Gu Nan and Little Red, and they hurriedly hid to the side to watch the show. In terms of combat, the Blood Guard obviously couldn't compare to the Star Master. In just a few hits, it was smashed to a pulp by the stars. When it was at the end of its tether and was about to transform into 40 little guards, Purple Will suddenly raised her hand. The stars in the sky lit up with purple light at the same time. They all fell and smashed the blood guard into pieces. The blood-colored screen in the sky also changed. Second stage condition met. Third stage, survive for 3 minutes. Victory condition, all 3 players must survive. Power limit, level 3. The whole process didn't take more than a minute. Purple Will had found a suitable method. She used an overpowered skill to forcefully prevent the blood guard from using his clone skills. This F*King kill line is probably at 20% HP. Gu Nan cursed in his heart. Before the boss HP dropped to a certain level, they could directly kill it. Of course, they could avoid the follow-up skills. This was a very simple method. But you also need to have such a godly killing technique. At the very least, Gu Nan's Great Treasure Sword's beheading line was far from this high. This Purple Will move was purely relying on its own heaven-defying laws. After all, they're Star-Lord NPCs. None of them are fools. Gu Nan shook his head inwardly. If I can't react in time at the beginning, I'll be stumped. But if I have some time to think, it'll be easy to come up with a solution. Meanwhile, Chiu Wenran had already welcomed him with an excited expression. As expected of Senior Purple Will, you grasped the StarNet laws in 3 days, and you were even able to fuse them into your own laws. It's just normal, Ziyi replied expressionlessly. This extremely arrogant lady obviously couldn't bear the fact that she was forced to interrupt the mission because of her. Therefore, when she came this time, she broke through the second stage alone. In the headquarters of the White Fog, Chu Kong excitedly walked out of the endless void. He had just completed a reincarnation mission, and it was much easier than he had imagined. That lord, who is he? No matter who he is, it would be great if he could still come and teach. Chu Kong could not help but look forward to it as he recalled the scene from last time. If there was a second chance, he swore that he would definitely hand over all the missions he could find to that lord. Guanxing, are you home? Chu Kong knocked on Guanxing's door next door, but there was no response. That's strange. Did he already go to hand in the mission? Reincarnation missions would not take up much time, especially missions in small worlds, which almost did not take up any time here. After a long time without any response, Chu Kong suppressed the questions in his heart and turned to walk outside. However, he happened to bump into someone at the corner. I owe you. Guanxing? Chu Kang's head was knocked, and he was about to speak when he saw the other person's face clearly. Guanxing, however, was in a hurry and did not even have the time to respond to Chu Kong. He pushed him aside and walked toward his own room. Faced with Guanxing's impoliteness, Chu Kong did not mind at all. Instead, his eyes lit up and he hurriedly followed. Guanxing, why are you in such a hurry? Is that lord here again? He had not forgotten the reason why he had seen Guanxing like this the last time. Hearing Chu Kong mention a certain person, Guanxing's expression changed instantly, but he immediately returned to normal. He quickly said, No. I have something urgent to attend to, move aside. Chu Kong was chased aside by him again, while Guanxing entered the room by himself. Bang! The room door was slammed shut, and Chu Kong could only shrug his shoulders after being snubbed. However, his expression immediately changed. This was because there was clearly a violent energy fluctuation coming from Guanxing's room. Guanxing! Chu Kong shouted and kicked the door open, but Guanxing was already nowhere to be seen. Chu Kong looked at the ground with rapt attention, only to see that there was an exquisite small formation drawn there. Even with Chu Kang's lack of proficiency in formations, he could tell that this was clearly a teleportation formation. The organization clearly has a teleportation formation, why did he set it up privately? Chu Kang's heart sank. He had a premonition that he had stepped into a huge whirlpool. In the small room, Red Tail was still reading the report below unhurriedly. One hand was gently placed on Lin Yunyun's shoulder, caressing her beautiful hair. Lin Yunyun seemed to be unused to such intimate actions. She kept her head lowered, her eyes passively reading the report on the table. The Netherworld Sea Dojo has reopened, and the dojo master, Ping Jiushan, has reappeared. The Netherworld Sea Dojo is located in the extreme north. The King of the North, Yi Chen, personally led the troops to conquer. The North region's army was defeated, and Yi Chen's whereabouts are unknown. There's news that he's severely injured and dying. These reports attracted her attention. Even though she did not pay attention to the situation of the continent, she knew how popular the title, King of the North region, was. However, the King of the North region, who had never been defeated since his debut, had suffered a great defeat this time, and even his whereabouts were unknown? As if noticing what she was looking at, Red Tail chuckled and said, "He's just a lucky guy who relied on the power of Providence. He's nothing when he meets a true powerhouse." As she said this, a report slowly appeared. According to the location, it came from the organization. Red Tail frowned slightly, having a bad feeling in her heart. She quickly picked up the report and read it, but a moment later, she slammed the table. "Guan Sheng." Lin Yunyun was shocked and quickly asked, "Mother, what's wrong?" Chapter 162. In the splendid world, Gu Nan, Chiu Wenran, and Purple Will stood side by side, looking at the magma that covered the entire city. The third stage, survival, was easier than they had imagined. After a few attempts, the three of them easily passed, and it did not take long from beginning to end. The third stage, to put it bluntly, was a rain of magma from the sky. It tested the player's resistance and reaction ability, and it was a test of hard strength. This was in line with the design of the dungeon. At the beginning, it would give the players a show of strength, then cut in from the tricky difficulty, requiring the players to be flexible, and finally, it would be a test of hard strength. However, for Gu Nan's team, it did not work at all, because they did not lack hard strength. Therefore, the entire third stage was basically not difficult for the three of them, and soon, it was time for the dungeon to end. According to this difficulty, the overall reward will not be too much. "I wonder if I can get 2,500 points," Gu Nan muttered to himself. He now had 2,100 points, and was 400 points away from the 2,500 mark. The first and second stages gave him 300 and 400 points respectively. The third stage would probably not be much, but it should not be lower than before. In order to avoid accidents, Gu Nan had to plan ahead and said, "Do you still want to farm?" What he received was a surprised look from the two. Chiu Wenran smiled and said, "Your Excellency, the small world mission has been completed once, and the world's origin has been seen by us. It is useless to do it a second time." The world's origin again. Gu Nan had some understanding. For the powerhouses of this world, this was probably the foundation of their cultivation. Using the world's origin to perfect their own rules, and then further perfect their own world. This was the case for them, but it might not be the case for Gu Nan himself. He remembered that the dungeon clearly stated that the reset period was 3 days. After returning to reality, Gu Nan immediately checked the evil god's temple and saw this message. Private Dungeon Splendid World's third stage completed, obtained 500 points. 500 points! With these 500 points, Gu Nan's points finally broke through the 2,500 mark, reaching 2,600 points, enough for him to level up. Next, I just need to wait for Lan Si's side. Gu Nan took a look at his sin value, 458 points. There was still a gap from his goal. However, Gu Nan could not think of anything for the time being. Reincarnation hadn't reached its cooldown time yet. His soul couldn't bear it, so he could only wait patiently. But at this moment, he noticed that 2 more messages had arrived from the white fog. What was even stranger was that the contents of the 2 messages were similar. They both said that his location had been exposed and that he should move immediately. Near the central mountain range, Feng Su appeared in midair and slowly descended to the ground. This time, he was traveling light and did not bring any attendants with him. Only Ping Jiushan and another person traveled with him. This person had a somewhat dull expression. It was Guan Xing, who had escaped from the white fog. Feng Su and Ping Jiushan did not recognize Gu Nan. Even though they had seen his appearance from the information, they were not as familiar as Guan Xing. Therefore, they naturally had to bring him along. Since you escaped from the white fog, Red Tail will probably send a message to Gu Nan soon. Are you sure he will stay here? Ping Jiushan was still not sure if he could find Gu Nan. Guan Xing said expressionlessly, Sir's order was to keep him here for a while. That's right. Feng Su nodded lightly. After receiving Gu Nan's location, I have already sealed this mountain range. If he escapes, he will trigger the mark I left behind. Feng Su was famous for being good at hunting and searching in the deep-sea shrine. Therefore, he was the one who came this time. Then how can you keep him here? Ping Jiushan asked again. A smile appeared on Guan Xing's dull face. I sent him a message in advance. Guan Xing was very good at playing with people's hearts. At least in this case, what he did was very clever. Even Red Tail did not expect Guan Xing to do something like this. She was in a hurry to get away from him. Red Tail's position was to not offend either side. She would not go against a break world elite for Gu Nan. She would not help Deep Sea King kill Gu Nan. To her, it did not matter who won or lost. She only needed to stand on the side of the winner. It was a shame Guan Xing had ruined her plan. The white fog had told Feng Su where Gu Nan was. If Gu Nan could turn the tables, would he believe there was a traitor in the organization? So, she was in a rush to send a message to Gu Nan. Of course, Red Tail did not expect that no matter what she said, he would not believe it. 2 messages? Gu Nan rubbed his chin, but there was a sneer on his lips. This strange action made people think that there was a problem inside the white fog. Perhaps someone had set up a trap. Perhaps Red Tail had chosen to stand against him. At this time, it did not matter if he listened to the other's opinion or remained the same. There was a risk. So, Gu Nan turned into a shadow. He silently hid in the depths of the mountains. In the middle of the mountains there was a stream. A girl in cotton clothes was walking in the mountains. She was carrying a basket on her back. She was picking wild fruits from the mountains. She did not look special. She was just a girl from the countryside who was out picking fruit. There were some things in the world that required luck. In the stream, there was a young man in a blue warrior suit. He was lying unconscious in the water. He had dashing eyebrows and starry eyes. His body was well proportioned, and he had a long sword on his waist. When the girl saw this, she put down the fruit and went forward. Hey, are you still alive? Wake up. The young man began to wake up as if he was touched by something from the outside world. Just as he opened his eyes and the two of them looked into each other's eyes, it was as if a star had suddenly lit up on the horizon. I see, you still can't find him? Feng Su had already searched the entire mountain range 3 times, but he still could not find Gu Nan, causing him to frown. Guan Xing's face began to break out in cold sweat. He began to worry that he might have outsmarted himself. What if Gu Nan was too straightforward or Red Tail did not act as he expected? Master, do you want me to send someone to search? Ping Jiushan asked softly. Yes. Feng Su nodded lightly and said, There are many cultivators in the mountain range. Did you expect them and send them here? Ping Jiushan dared not admit that. He waved his hand and said, Of course not. They're here to track Yi Chen. Yi Chen? That son of fortune? Feng Su's expression changed slightly as he squinted. Chapter 163. The son of fortune is manipulated by the heaven and earth. As long as he doesn't die, his every move must be in accordance with the will of the heavens. It's not that simple, Feng Su said with a dark face. Clearly, he knew more about the son of fortune than the people on planet Xianhuang. Ping Jiushan did not care. Just as he was about to speak, the sky suddenly lit up with starlight. I see, a soft sigh echoed in everyone's ears. Ping Jiushan and Guan Xing did not know what was happening. They looked around in shock, but Feng Su's face suddenly changed. Master, this is… Feng Su looked at the sky. He struggled to say, someone is leveling up to break world. Gu Nan was still a shadow, hiding in the deepest part of the mountains. Feng Su and the others had passed by a few times, but he did not make a sound. It was like he had become a real shadow. Gu Nan had always been confident in his hidden shadow. Ever since he came to this world, aside from being seen through by an old man named Jiang, it had never failed. Unless they sent out a grade 4 being to search him, he was not worried about his safety. But when the starlight lit up and the sigh echoed in his heart, he knew he could not hide any more. It was not because of the sigh, but because of the message from the evil god temple. Evil event triggered, daughter of thousand Buddha. Beside the stream, Yi Chen looked at the girl in front of him. He could not say anything. His life had been one of struggle. He had gone from a good-for-nothing to the king of the north. His experiences were enough to be adapted into a legendary novel. He did not lack women. From childhood sweethearts to royal princesses, there were too many girls who fell in love with him. But this was the first time Yi Chen had felt his heart beat so fast. This girl was like a gift from the heavens. She was perfect and flawless. She walked into Yi Chen's heart. Why are you looking at me like that? The girl lowered her head. Her cheeks blushed. At that moment there was the sound of hurried footsteps. A group of people from the underworld Sea Dojo had arrived. They surrounded the two of them in the blink of an eye. The leader said excitedly, Yi Chen, you have nowhere to go. Surrender immediately. Yi Chen stood up slowly and shielded the girl behind him. He said while grinning coldly, even if I, Yi Chen, am a tiger who has fallen from grace, I'm not someone you can bully. After all, he was the king of the northern region. No one dared to step forward after hearing Yi Chen's resolute words. Yi Chen's expression changed slightly. He suddenly carried the young lady and broke out of the encirclement. Damn it, he's faking it. The leader immediately reacted and said exasperatedly, chase after him. Yi Chen revealed a disdainful smile as he ran away while carrying the young lady. This group of idiots, if I can be surrounded by them, then I… 3 figures stood in front of him, and Ping Jiushan was sneering. However, Feng Su ignored him. He only stared at the young lady on Yi Chen's shoulder and mumbled, Buddha. Yi Chen's face turned pale when he was stopped by the 3 of them. Of course, he recognized Feng Su. It was difficult for him to fight Feng Su when he was at his peak. Now, he was in grave danger. With the delay, the pursuers behind him got closer. The first person had already slashed down with his sword. The young lady screamed. However, at that moment, something strange happened. A golden gleam began to shine from between her brows. The sword that was slashing down was destroyed directly, but the golden gleam was getting brighter and brighter until no one dared to look at it directly. If someone were to look at her now, they would see that there was between her brows, the worded. A token flew out of Feng Su's chest slowly and transformed into a shadow. The shadow was covered in armor, which seemed to be some sort of navy uniform. It was the projection of the Deep Sea King. Your Highness, Feng Su and the other 2 knelt on one knee immediately and greeted respectfully. The reincarnation of 10,000 Buddhas, awakening from 9,000 lives, the Deep Sea King sighed softly and said, I never thought this prophecy would come true here. Subsequently, he lifted his head again and looked at the sky far away. His face under the armor was expressionless. Heavenly secret? It's you again. Awakening the 10,000 Buddhas in advance. You dare to do such a thing? The Deep Sea King's voice seemed to have a hint of laughter, as though he was gloating over something. Seeing the Deep Sea King appear, Feng Su hurriedly asked, Your Highness, that Gu Nan might be in this mountain range. That little friend? He is, and he's right beside us. The Deep Sea King nodded lightly. His power was far beyond the transcendent realm. Naturally, Gu Nan's location could not be hidden from him. Some sort of strange power slowly descended, and a shadow was instantly revealed. It was Gu Nan's figure. Gu Nan's face showed a trace of helplessness. This was not his fault. Who would have thought that such an inexplicable scene would directly draw out the Deep Sea King? However, he was much calmer now. He had already seen a Star Lord who was far above the 5th rank in reality. Why would he care about a 4th rank? Moreover, it was not that he could not escape at all. It was just that the current situation made him not in a hurry to leave. His gaze landed on the young lady. She was currently floating in midair, and the Buddhist seals around her were increasing, floating around her. The crime incident was his best chance to step into the 4th rank. The Deep Sea King's power had completely locked onto him. Facing a 4th rank head-on, Gu Nan could not fight back at all. He could not use any of his laws. He only had one chance to attack. As the golden light on the young lady's body grew brighter, Yi Chen's gaze became more and more mesmerized. There seemed to be some sort of power that was attracting him to this young lady. In the next moment, the young lady suddenly opened her eyes. Under the heavens and on the earth, I am the only one. Even though there was no sound, this sentence appeared in everyone's heart. The young lady's eyes were filled with indifference, as if she was looking down at the mortals from a high place. She raised her hand and pointed at the sky. The clouds in the sky instantly split into half, and a purplish-black cloud was already floating there. Meanwhile, the golden light on the young lady's body gradually retracted and landed on the ground beneath her feet. One gold and one purple, one sky and one earth. A single thought to become a Buddha or a single thought to become a demon. Buddha, please choose. A voice seemed to come from the sky, and a figure was slowly walking over from there. It was the Prophet Sect Master. At this moment, he was not dressed like a scholar. The folding fan and silk scarf had been thrown aside. Instead, he looked like a Taoist priest, wearing a green Taoist robe. After saying this, he did not look over there. Instead, he bowed to the Deep Sea King. "Greetings, Your Highness." The Deep Sea King did not deny it. He only said, "Using the luck of a galaxy to forcefully awaken the Buddha who has yet to reincarnate. What a trick! You flatter me." The Prophet Sect Master only smiled and turned to look at Gu Nan. He also bowed and said, "Fellow Gu, we meet again." Gu Nan could not make any expression now, so he did not even say anything. He just rolled his eyes in response. The Prophet Sect Master did not mind. He asked the Deep Sea King, "I heard that Your Highness has a good relationship with the Buddha realm. I wonder what Your Highness thinks the Buddha will choose?" Becoming a Buddha after reincarnating for 10,000 lives. Even if there are only 9,000 lives, it should not be too far off, the Deep Sea King said calmly. As if to prove his words, the young lady in midair, one on the left and the other on the right, were glowing with golden and purple light. They were fighting each other. However, not long after, the golden light started to win and started to push the purple light to a corner. Wherever the purple light passed, bloody holes started to appear on the young lady's body. Blood flowed freely, but the young lady's expression was still cold. Otherwise, the Prophet Sect Master laughed softly. Becoming a Buddha after 10,000 lives, waking up after 9,000 lives is naturally not possible. After saying this, he looked at Gu Nan. "Fellow Gu, what do you think?" The Deep Sea King frowned slightly. The Prophet Sect Master had asked him twice, which made him realize something. Without thinking, he slammed his palm down, and a terrifying power directly descended on the top of Gu Nan's head. He only needed to keep Gu Nan alive and interrogate him about the whereabouts of the God Stone. There was no such thing as holding back. Gu Nan looked at the Prophet Sect Master's smile and felt the power in midair, so he grinned. In the next moment, he appeared in midair, right behind the young lady. The power of the law was completely sealed, but Gu Nan still had skills, and he still had flash attack, that could allow him to break through all the locks. The Deep Sea King's expression changed under his armor. The Buddha, who had not fully awakened, did not have the power he had in the past. This was forcing him to make a decision immediately. He stretched out his hand, wanting to hit Gu Nan, but Gu Nan was faster. With the shadow sword in hand, Gu Nan looked at the bloody holes on the young lady's body and used a skill without hesitation. Chapter 164. The Judgment of Justice, nicknamed by the players as the Great Sword, was a very special skill because it dealt true damage based on the remaining HP. How was one to determine the amount of HP in reality? Gu Nan didn't know how the evil god's temple determined the damage, but he knew one thing. As long as the opponent was injured and bleeding, it would definitely deal damage. With the current state of the female Buddha, there was no need for a fatal attack. Just a little bit of interference was enough to doom her. Gu Nan was very clear about this. Being able to accurately analyze the situation on the battlefield was also a necessary quality for an expert player. The power of the precept only broke away a little, causing the shadow sword to appear dim. However, the white light on the tip of the sword revealed an indescribable power. Gu Nan's sword stabbed down fiercely, but just as the tip of the sword was about to touch the girl, she suddenly turned around. Her tightly closed eyes opened again. This time, they weren't shining with a golden light, but with a purple and black light with endless demonic intent. The golden mark between the girl's eyebrows, the D character, was now being infiltrated bit by the purple, and in the blink of an eye, it had completely turned purple. The power of the great sword didn't make the heaven and earth tremble this time. It didn't even cause any more injuries to the girl. This was because the moment she turned around, the aura on her body had suddenly become extremely powerful. It was so powerful that even Tianji Dao Lord, who was already one step into the 4th rank, couldn't compare to it. Perhaps only the unfathomable Deep Sea King could compare to the current her. A golden light flashed, and Gu Nan was instantly blasted away. Half of his body was smashed into pieces, and his injury was even more serious than when he was hit by the Deep Sea King. From a mortal to the 4th rank, the power of Buddhist reincarnation was indeed extraordinary. Gu Nan fell to the ground like a pile of mud, and even his head was split in half. However, his cerebral cortex was directly in contact with the ground, giving him a strange sensation. But with the unreasonable damage reduction of passivation, Gu Nan didn't die. His consciousness was still clear because he had already felt the vibration from the evil god's temple. Completed event: 1000 Buddha True Maiden. Total sin points, 48. What a pity! The Heavenly Secret Path Master looked at Gu Nan, who had been completely crushed into a pile of flesh, and sighed softly. The King of the Deep Sea also looked in that direction, but he only snorted coldly and said, "You overestimate yourself." Now that the Buddha had reappeared in the human world, even the Deep Sea King himself would not dare to intervene, let alone instruct others to do so. Whether the other party became a demon or a Buddha had nothing to do with him, the Deep Sea King. The Heavenly Mystery Path Master dared to intervene because it was related to his opportunity to achieve Tao. With the Tao in front of him, he naturally dared to take any risk. As for that brat who snatched the world's stone, a mere transcendent actually dared to make a move against the 10,000 worlds Buddha. He must be tired of living. However, at this moment, the Deep Sea King also understood what the Mysterious Path Master was doing. In fact, the whole thing was very simple. The Heavenly Mystery Tao Lord had found the reincarnated body of the 10,000 worlds Buddha, so he had used the fate of a region to awaken her. That was all. No matter how profound the situation was, as long as the mastermind's goal was found, everything would become logical. Before knowing the existence of the 10,000 worlds Buddha, no matter if it was Gu Nan, the other 5 Path Masters, or even the White Mist, they could not understand what the Mysterious Path Master was doing. 9,000 worlds of Buddha have been destroyed. What a shame! The Mysterious Path Master looked at the girl in midair, who was floating toward the purple cloud. He shook his head and sighed. The reincarnation of the 10,000 worlds Buddha. Every life, he was a person with a deep connection to Buddha. Every life, he died to worship Buddha. With the accumulation of the 10,000 worlds Buddha, if he could reincarnate and wake up, he would be a Buddha among Buddhas. It was a shame that the mysterious Path Master had destroyed it. The accumulation of the 10,000 worlds Buddha was not purified by the Buddha. One could imagine the result. You should think about yourself first. The Deep-Sea King looked at him strangely and said. The mysterious Path Master laughed and said, when the Buddha completely wakes up, it will be the day I step into the break world. When that happens, I will be able to return to Shanghai Pavilion in one breath. I don't think she will be able to catch up. Perhaps it was because the opportunity to become a Buddha had finally arrived, and his long-cherished wish had finally been fulfilled. Even the mysterious Path Master relaxed his guard. When he spoke, he was not as careful as he used to be. Of course, the Deep-Sea King knew his background, so there was no need for him to be careful. The girl in the sky flew higher and higher. The symbol between her eyebrows turned purple. Her black hair grew longer. Then, it reached her waist. Her clothes changed. She wore a black robe. She sat cross-legged on the purple cloud. The purple cloud disappeared. It revealed a giant black lotus. The girl was sitting on it. The lotus was still spinning. The purple light in the girl's eyes started to dim. When it completely disappeared, she looked like a normal person. Then, she looked at the mysterious Path Master and the Deep-Sea King. She nodded at the Deep-Sea King. Then, she looked at the mysterious Path Master and said, I will go to Shanghai Pavilion to make them pay for this. The mysterious Path Master looked like he did not care. He bowed and said, I and the 3 pavilion leaders will be waiting for you. The young woman gave a cold harumph, but said nothing more. However, it was at this moment that someone suddenly called out, Don't go. The girl looked to the side. It was Yi Chen who was in a daze. The latter's face was pale. No one knew what he was thinking. He mumbled, Don't go, you helped me wake up with your luck. Although it wasn't my wish, it's still karma. She looked down at the ground and waved her hand to scatter a black lotus. This can help you break through the limit of luck and break through the realm. As expected of the Buddha of all ages. Even though she had just woken up, she could give people a treasure that could help them break through the realm. Meanwhile, Yi Chen only stared blankly. He did not react even when the black lotus landed in his arms. He kept saying those 3 words. At that moment, he had a splitting headache. There seemed to be something in his mind that wanted to jump out, but he could not recall it. He instinctively felt that it had something to do with the girl. If he let her go, he would definitely regret it. However, the black lotus in his arms seemed to weigh millions of kilograms. Just by landing in Yi Chen's arms, it pressed down on him to the point that he could not move. He could not even speak loudly. His obviously unusual action made the Deep-Sea King fall silent. He looked at the mysterious Path Master strangely, but the latter only smiled faintly and said nothing. The girl sat on the black lotus again, and raised her eyes to the sky as if she was announcing something to the heavens. From today onwards, the Buddha of all ages is dead. I control the Buddhist path of reincarnation. From today onwards, the Buddhas of all ages will not enter reincarnation. Their bodies will disappear when they die. From today onwards, my name has no return. The girl, or rather, the demon Buddha of no return, announced to the heavens. Her voice instantly resounded throughout the entire Xianhuang planet. Everyone heard it. However, at that moment, a faint voice came from the direction of a pile of rotten meat. Chapter 165. Let's rewind time to a moment ago. The moment he read the information about the evil god's temple, Gu Nan's consciousness directly escaped into it, opened the game interface as fast as he could, and chose to level up. The 1000 Buddha True Daughter event was the fastest event that Gu Nan had ever experienced, but the reward was quite generous. He actually took a risk. If the reward given by the evil event didn't exceed 42 sin points, then he might have really become a pile of mud. Fortunately, the content of the event, attacking a grade 4 powerhouse, instantly raised the difficulty infinitely and gave a generous reward. Now Gu Nan had 506 sin points, 2,600 points, and the cost of leveling up was just right. The process of leveling up to grade 4 was even stranger than Gu Nan had imagined. As a grade 3 profound meaning, swap became Gu Nan's first exclusive law, and it directly became his main skill after reaching grade 4. Under the indescribable power of the law, Gu Nan's understanding of shadow was rapidly increasing, and he finally stepped into the ranks of grade 4. Fortunately, Gu Nan had experience in the game in his previous life. Although the essence of the law needed to be slowly understood, he knew how to use it. In terms of pure use, those Star Lords might not be better than him. Grade 4. Gu Nan sat on the throne of the evil god's temple, and shadow bodies began to appear around him. Swap. When Gu Nan stabbed with his sword, over 10 shadow bodies turned into his appearance and stabbed with the same sword, but there was a slight difference between the beginning and the end. After reaching grade 4, the swap law was no longer that simple, and it had more extensions. The shadow bodies were all replaced by Gu Nan at different times. In the interval between his sword attacks, a shadow body would replace his body every second, turning into a real existence. Turning illusions into reality, this kind of creation ability was the power of grade 4. At a certain moment after the young girl, Wu Gue, bestowed the Black Lotus and declared to the heavens, as soon as Gu Nan's voice fell, a shadow suddenly rose into the sky. The young girl's gaze slowly shifted in that direction. The Heavenly Mystery Path Master looked back in astonishment, but the Deep Sea King's reaction was faster than the two of them. In an instant, he had already soared into the sky. This wasn't because he was vigilant, but because the dense killing intent coming from not far away forced him to react. Countless figures of Gu Nan appeared beside the King of the Deep Sea at the same time. Every one of them was real, and every sword was filled with fatal killing intent. Gu Nan, the King of the Deep Sea, roared. His body suddenly expanded, and the anchor on his shoulder fell down heavily. The terrifying tremors seemed to shatter space itself. Gu Nan's shadow bodies naturally shattered, but at the same time, more shadow bodies crawled out from the shadow of the King of the Deep Sea. The King of the Deep Sea's gaze turned cold. He finally realized that he couldn't fight with his opponent, so he risked this wave of attacks to escape with his life. His hands tore open the void, and without a word, he wanted to jump in. But behind him, he was stabbed by dozens of swords from Gu Nan. Facing the shadow swords, the armor on his body was like paper, and was instantly pierced through. The dozens of swords all entered his body, and fresh blood gushed out. Roar! The King of the Deep Sea let out a beast-like roar, and at the same time, the aura of an ancient beast appeared. As a blood descendant, the King of the Deep Sea's bloodline was originally half non-human. But in the end, he suppressed the impulse deep in his bloodline, and didn't choose to turn back to fight. Instead, he fled into the void crack, and no one knew which plane he had escaped to. The shadow bodies that filled the sky slowly retracted, and once again turned into Gu Nan, standing where the King of the Deep Sea had been. You sure run fast. Gu Nan laughed coldly, but he didn't care. After all, they were both level 4 powerhouses. When it came to escaping, they naturally had their own abilities, and it would be difficult to completely stop the other. But after taking dozens of his swords, the King of the Deep Sea would probably not be able to recover without a few decades of cultivation, and would he give him time to recover? The monk could run, but the temple could not. The Tianji Path Master was dumbfounded. No matter what, the King of the Deep Sea was a veteran world breaker. He was a powerhouse that had been given a planetary-level star seal by the Shanghai Pavilion, and yet he had escaped? On the other side, Gu Nan's gaze had already shifted to him. The Tianji Path Master felt like he was being stared at by a poisonous snake, and his back was inexplicably cold. He quickly waved his hand and said, "Friend Gu, we have no enmity, how about?" Without hesitation, Gu Nan slashed down with his sword. Why talk so much nonsense? Only those who could not be killed had the right to talk about conditions. Layers of shadow swords appeared again, and this sword was divided into hundreds of moments. Every moment, a Gu Nan would be replaced, participating in the attack on the Tianji Path Master. This kind of infinite duplication method made the Tianji Path Master's scalp go numb. He was not the king of the deep sea, and he did not have the ability to resist, so he just let himself be chopped into minced meat. The attack from a level 4 powerhouse was not that easy to endure. Even though this was not the Tianji Path Master's original body, the shadow power directly followed the line of rules and extended to his original body. A muffled groan came from the starry sky, and then there was a spatial fluctuation. It was the Tianji Path Master who had left. Just as he had said before, he went directly to the Central Star Field's Shanghai Pavilion. Only there would he feel safer. Another one. Gu Nan still had a cold smile on his face. He was not afraid of these level 4 powerhouses running away, because these people had their own route. As long as they were not alone, sooner or later, he would kill them until they had no choice but to show themselves. Feng Su, Ping Jiushan, and Ping Jiushan, who were originally beside the king of the deep sea, saw Gu Nan turn his head and wanted to beg for mercy, but a sword pierced their hearts at the same time. After killing the 3 of them, Gu Nan finally looked at young lady No Return, the person who had almost turned him into minced meat in one move. She was also looking at him coldly, because it was Gu Nan's sword that forced her to make a decision in advance, allowing the demonic intent to gain the upper hand, causing her to end up in such a state. Both sides had enmity, and naturally, the result was a huge fight. The shadow appeared once again, and countless swords pointed towards the young lady. Young lady No Return lightly patted the black lotus beneath her, and the demonic intent instantly swept over. Gotcha! Something seemed to shatter in the void, and Gu Nan's shadow was swept away, and Wu Gui's demonic intent also dissipated. Both sides were actually tied. However, at this moment another 2 auras descended. It was a man and a woman walking out of the void. The man and woman both had pointed ears, fair skin, and looked somewhat similar. At this moment, the man spoke with a gloomy face. "The 2 of you came uninvited, and entered my mysterious yellow star. Do you want us siblings to play host?" Chapter 166. These 2 people were the rulers of planet Xianhuang. They were the first 2 break world elites there. Luo Jie and Luo Fei, the brother and sister, were famous break world elites in the surrounding astral world. Their fame came from their obsession with territory. They always thought of planet Xianhuang as their own territory. They were very xenophobic, so when they saw Gu Nan and the girl, No Return, their attitude was very bad. In fact, it was not just Gu Nan and the girl. If any break world elite entered the 6th system without warning, they would be treated with hostility. That kind of behavior was very unique. Most break world people did not care about territory. In this world, power belonged to oneself. As long as oneself was unharmed, one could easily build up their territory. There was nothing to care about. The one who spoke to Gu Nan and the girl was the older brother, Luo Jie. The little sister, Luo Fei, stepped forward and said, "You 2 should leave planet Xianhuang immediately. We can pretend this never happened." Otherwise, before she could finish her sentence, Gu Nan had already slashed at her with his sword. Layers of shadows appeared again. This time, the target was Luo Fei. The girl, No Return, attacked at the same time. She waved her hand and unleashed a palm strike. It was supposed to be a Buddha palm strike, but now it carried an endless amount of demon air. It looked very scary. Her target was her brother, Luo Jie. She wanted Luo Jie to be unable to save Luo Fei. After unleashing that palm strike, No Return turned around and left. She did not hesitate at all. Those who could become break world elites were not stupid. Luo Jie immediately understood what she meant. She was sure his sister would be killed. At the very least, she would be badly injured. That was the only way for her to stop him. That was the only way she could provoke hatred between him and the other person. That way, she would be able to leave. Luo Jie's brain suddenly understood all of this. He blocked the girl's attack and coldly smiled. If he thought his sister would be defeated that easily, then he was too arg. There was a scream behind him. Luo Jie looked back in disbelief. He saw Luo Fei had been hit by a dozen swords. Every sword landed on the same spot. It was supposed to be Luo Fei's heart. After she dodged it, it became her abdomen. But how powerful was Gu Nan's sword? Even the king of the deep sea, a bloodkin, was heavily injured in an instant. After advancing to rank 4, while swap had become Gu Nan's exclusive rule, the strengthening of his body itself was not to be underestimated. The Tier 4 evil god's body had practically reached a jaw-dropping level. Gu Nan could even contend against Tier 3 laws with his physical strength alone. And the special use of the displacement law gave him the ability to multiply his attacks by dozens of times. Gu Nan's real body, which was replaced by the shadow body, attacked at the same time, so their movements were exactly the same. The moment the first Gu Nan stabbed Luo Fei, the second Gu Nan also stabbed her, followed by the third, the fourth. The nature of the shadow body allowed the Gu Nan clones to overlap, as if they were one person. This was because Gu Nan's control over displacement had improved. He could no longer separate the shadow bodies. So in the eyes of outsiders, it seemed that he had defeated Luo Fei with just one strike. What they did not know was that each of Gu Nan's attacks was dozens of times more critical. It might be complicated to explain, but to Luo Jie, the whole thing was very simple. His sister had been seriously injured by one strike. With Gu Nan's terrifying strength, the fact that Luo Fei did not die instantly was already the result of her noble core rule. But even so, her body still fell slowly. Die! Luo Jie roared angrily. A bolt of lightning suddenly fell from the sky, directly striking Gu Nan's head. This bolt of lightning directly shattered a large expanse of space, revealing a pitch-black void. Its might was so powerful that it was indescribable. If it was Gu Nan when he was at rank 3, this lightning would be enough to severely injure him to the brink of death. But when it was placed on Gu Nan now, he didn't even blink his eyes, and he allowed the thunderclap to descend onto his head without the slightest injury. The strength of a level 4 evil god body was hard to imagine. After the loud noise, Gu Nan slowly walked out of the dust. When he looked at where Luo Jie and his sister were, there was no one there. It is no wonder they are world breakers. They run faster than the last. Gu Nan coldly laughed. He did not care. After reaching level 4, everyone had the power to tier space. It was very difficult to kill each other. That was why world breakers rarely fought each other. No one could kill the other, so what was the point of fighting? It was also not convenient to attack the enemy's faction. If you destroyed someone else's faction, they could destroy you. World breakers could not always guard their territory. There was always a chance someone could find them. Regarding the current situation, Gu Nan did not care. He had just leveled up. He had ways to deal with these people in the future. In the game, many players studied how to kill NPCs that could run away. The source is damaged. I cannot use my body to travel across the system. Let's see where you can run to. Mr. When Gu Nan arrived at the headquarters of the White Mist again, Red Tail showed more respect than usual. For those who were observant, what happened in the Central Mountains was not a secret. Deep Sea King appeared, a Buddha's reincarnation woke up, Sky Secret Path Master became a world breaker, and the two leaders of planet Xianhuang appeared. Red Tail had been on planet Xianhuang for many years, but she had not seen as many world breakers. More importantly, those world breakers had all been defeated by Gu Nan, who had just leveled up. It is no wonder he is the fastest person to level up in history. Red Tail had a wry smile. She knew what Shanghai Pavilion said about Gu Nan. Take over planet Xianwang and control all the starship's landing points. If you cannot control them, destroy them all. When Gu Nan said that, a small, black sword appeared. It landed in Red Tail's hand. This has my rule power sealed inside. Ordinary path masters cannot take a hit from it. Red Tail hurriedly took the small sword. It seemed ordinary, but she could not do anything to the small sword even if she exerted a little force in her palm. She did not dare be distracted. She looked at Gu Nan and said, "Mister, those two have a training ground here. Do you want to, where?" Gu Nan raised his eyebrows. Those two were Luo Jie and Luo Fei, the brother and sister. He did not know those two had a tradition. Chapter 167. On a lonely island at the southern end of the continent, two young men were kowtowing as they walked toward the center of the island. "Denyo, can we really move the immortals in the heavenly palace by doing this?" One of them had already broken his forehead and rubbed his knees until they were bleeding. He couldn't help but stop to rest and murmur. The young man named Denyo looked very thin and weak, which didn't match his name at all. "If you are sincere, it will work. If you don't have a firm heart, how can you move the immortals?" Denyo said calmly. He didn't look at him and continued to kowtow. The injuries on his forehead and knees were more serious than his companions, but he didn't seem to feel it at all. "But—" Denyo's companion touched his wounds and grimaced in pain. "Heavenly Palace Island is a celestial island. Our every move is watched by the immortals," Denyo said coldly. His companion was shocked and didn't dare to say anything else. The two of them walked toward the center of the island step by step. After more than an hour, they finally reached the center of the island. In the central region, there were many magnificent palaces situated in the middle of the mountains, giving off a strong visual impact. So spectacular," Denyo's companion murmured. He couldn't move his eyes away and didn't notice that Denyo's eyes were shining brightly. He was roaring in his mind, "I, Myriad Shadows Demon Master, am back! Luo Jie, Luo Fei, just you wait. Once I secretly control your heavenly palace, I will, This Myriad Shadows Demon Master, who had been reincarnated, saw a shocking scene as soon as he arrived at the Heavenly Palace Hall. A giant sword that was more than 1,000 meters long slashed down from the sky. The front, middle, and back halls of the Heavenly Palace Hall were all cut in half. This. Denyo looked at it dumbfoundedly and couldn't say anything. Although he hated the siblings, he knew that they were already the top figures in the mortal world back then. Now they were probably on the altar and couldn't be compared to mortals. Who was so daring to provoke the Tai Sui? As expected, someone soon appeared and shouted angrily, "Who dares to invade the Heavenly Palace Hall? Are you tired of living?" The people from the Heavenly Palace Hall were much more arrogant than the great Taoist rite. After all, this was the orthodoxy of a world breaker. Even if they did not care about the secular world, no one dared to look down on them. There were as many as 7 Downlords in the Heaven Palace. This was the might of the Heaven Palace. However, all of this seemed to be meaningless before the person who'd arrived. Gu Nan's figure slowly walked out from the void. Ever since he had reached the Fourth Order, he naturally had the ability to tear through the void, and could easily travel between different parts of the continent. As long as he had the coordinates, he could even go to the central star zone directly. According to the game, after reaching level 4, it would be equivalent to activating the full map teleportation mode, and it would truly resemble the later stages of the game. Looks like Luo Jie never came back. Gu Nan looked down coldly. If Luo Jie had been here, the people of Heavenly Palace wouldn't have stayed here. They would have fled in all directions. Boom, boom, boom. After a few consecutive strikes, the Heavenly Palace Hall was smashed into ruins, and the Downlord who had just spoken was instantly cut in half. Denyo hid at the side and could only watch all of this in a daze, especially when he saw a Downlord powerhouse. Even when he was at his peak, he wouldn't have dared to say he could defeat him. Had the world become so terrifying? Daigneau, who had just returned from the possession, wanted to burst into tears. After Gu Nan killed the remaining members of the Heavenly Palace Hall, the people of the White Mist quickly came to clean up the battlefield. Lord, all the starship on planet Xianhuang are currently under our control. The second commander is checking the list that was submitted in the past 2 days to find traces of those two. Third last stood in front of Gu Nan with cold sweat on his forehead. His original capable look was long gone, and even his tone was somewhat stuttering. Okay. Gu Nan nodded calmly and said casually, just make sure that the two of them haven't run out of the planet. Control the situation on the mainland first. Did you encounter any trouble? Luo Fei was seriously injured by Gu Nan and couldn't withstand the huge pressure of a star zone jump at all. If she wanted to leave the 6-star zone, she would have to use starship. Hence, controlling all the starship on planet Xianhuang would ensure that they couldn't escape. No, Third Last replied. The King of the North, Yi Chen, is missing, and there's no longer any resistance on the mainland. After the second commander destroyed the 2 dojos, all the Downlords also expressed their allegiance. Gu Nan nodded again. The order he gave Redtail was to control the situation on planet Xianhuang in the shortest time possible and kill anyone who dared to resist. That was actually to hide the existence of the White Mist. Gu Nan still needed the White Mist to obtain the fog mirror for him so that he could continuously harvest sin points. Hence, he didn't want anyone to target the White Mist. Since someone already knew about his relationship with the White Mist, he might as well expand his territory to the entire planet Xianhuang. Using planet Xianhuang as a target for others to hit would allow the White Mist to hide in the dark. When someone wanted to target him, the White Mist wouldn't be the first target. Where's Lan Si? Gu Nan asked again. Ms. Lan is still in closed-door cultivation. Third Last hurriedly answered and paused for a moment before continuing. By the way, our people found a girl in the Heavenly Palace. The second commander thinks that she might be the descendant of those two. Gu Nan was stunned and said, they're siblings, right? Third Last was stunned too, and then she had a strange expression on her face. Yes, their bloodline seems to be very special. In order to maintain the bloodline of the family, they have always been close relatives. Interesting, Gu Nan said with a smile. Do you need me to bring her here for you to see? Gu Nan waved his hand. Forget it. Didn't I instruct the White Mist to start collecting children from all over the world and train them from a young age? Let's add her in. If there was anything special about the daughter of Luo Jie and Luo Fei, it would naturally be revealed when the time came. Third Last retreated, while Gu Nan stood up and tore the void apart before stepping in. After reaching level 4, he had gotten much easier to control the shadow body and could already leave a mark across the plane. Once something happened here, he could rush back at any time. Gu Nan was now going to a special plane. According to the ratio of souls, there were actually only 2 ways to reincarnate in the plane: to put in all of one's soul, or to put in a wisp of one's soul. He couldn't put in a certain ratio like Gu Nan had previously thought. It was either all or a little. However, in the past few years that Gu Nan had reincarnated, there was a world that was very special. It could replace the origin of the world with half of the reincarnated person's soul, forming a very special half-life mode. That was the immortal demon world. Chapter 168. Today, Gu Nan was no longer the young and inexperienced youth, who didn't even know what reincarnation was when he first came to this world. After constant research and understanding of the White Mist, in his eyes, reincarnation no longer had too many secrets. In essence, it was just a special method to project the soul to another plane. It was more like a substitute method that cultivators found before they could tear the void. But when Gu Nan personally tore the void and entered the immortal demon world, his thinking was somewhat different. A rejection from the world? When Gu Nan slowly entered the immortal demon world from the endless void, he could clearly feel the rejection from the world itself. This feeling never appeared when he was at a low level, or maybe it wasn't obvious enough before, but now he could clearly feel it. It was like there was some kind of power trying to push Gu Nan out of this world, and the longer he stayed here, the stronger this power became. I can stay here for about 3 days, that's enough. Gu Nan frowned, estimating the approximate time in his heart. He didn't come here with the intention of interfering with the situation of the immortal demon world. He just wanted to see the strange origin of this world. Gu Nan sat quietly in a corner of the immortal demon world. The troubles of the world seemed to have nothing to do with him. His soul was slowly lifted up, coldly looking at the world. After sitting quietly for a short time, a soul slowly approached from the endless void, coming towards him. This was a reincarnator from another place. His goal was the immortal demon world. In the endless void, or according to the Star Lords, it should be called the Heavenly Star Path, there were big and small light balls everywhere, representing the existence of different planes. And the soul was a small dot of light, suddenly submerged into the light ball. Gu Nan saw it clearly. When the dot of light entered the immortal demon world, an inexplicable power was born from the depths of the world, wrapping around the soul. And after that, the power between the two began to interact, just like what Gu Nan had seen before. Half of the soul was stored in this world to ensure that the reincarnated person's soul would not be obliterated due to death. However, the price was that once they died, they would never be able to enter this world again. What is the principle behind this strange setting? Gu Nan frowned. He activated his shadow power and wrapped it around the godly soul. Now that he had stepped into the Tier 4 realm, his life essence was different from that of ordinary people. His law energy was already close to becoming a true law. The shadow quietly spread, silently approaching the reincarnated soul, and then suddenly pounced on it. In the next moment, the repulsive force acting on Gu Nan's body suddenly became stronger. Before he could see clearly, he had already been pushed out of the immortal demon world. Red Carp, in a corner of Care for One's Family, by Luoluo suddenly woke up from her reincarnation and then looked around in confusion. Strange, why am I still here? By Luoluo was somewhat puzzled. Even after such a long time had passed, she was still that naive little girl. She remembered that she was supposed to reincarnate into the immortal demon world, but she didn't know why she came back. Is there a possibility of failure in reincarnation? After being expelled by the source of the immortal demon world, Gu Nan did not stay for long. He immediately returned to the mysterious yellow star, but there was a strange smile on his face. Although it was only a glimpse, Gu Nan's current cultivation was enough for him to see a lot of things. That familiar figure was obviously from the Red Carp, and the strange method of exchanging souls with the world's source, well, the latter needs more observation. If only I could learn this method. Gu Nan could not help but sigh. If he could use his own law energy to exchange for other people's souls, it would be the most perfect way to build a force. Before the white mist, Gu Nan never thought about building a force. The core reason was that there was no need for it, and he didn't trust anyone. After clarifying the method of translating the world will, Gu Nan needed the existence of the white mist to collect the children of destiny for him as materials to make the fog mirror. This was what he needed. If he could find the method of exchanging souls from the strange settings of the immortal demon world, then he could give his subordinates more trust. However, it was obvious that the source of the immortal demon world was very dissatisfied with Gu Nan, so this matter could not be rushed. Experiment and observation, I need to do both at the same time. Thinking so, Gu Nan picked up a pen with his right hand and pretended to write a title on the paper. The Immortal Demon World's Attack Plan. After writing the title, he thought for a long time and finally wrote only one line under the title: Kill those who don't listen. Red Tail had not received the title for the time being, so she only wrote Attack Plan. However, She had long understood Gu Nan's attitude and carried it out consistently. In just a few days, on the mysterious yellow star ring, 3 more dojos were razed to the ground, and this was all thanks to Redtail. The prestige that the Downlords had built up over hundreds and thousands of years was like a joke in front of that pitch-black sword. Have all the Downlords been summoned? Redtail sat in the quiet room, took a sip of tea, and asked indifferently. All the dojos on the star ring have been visited. A total of 63 Downlords have come, and 15 have sent representatives. Lin Yunyun immediately replied. Redtail seemed to have the intention of training Lin Yunyun to do things. Even such a major matter involving the Downlords was handled by her. If Gu Nan wanted to unify the mysterious yellow star, the most important thing was to control the Downlords. If he ruled through these local tyrants, the whole process would be much more peaceful and convenient. Most of the Downlords had dojos on the star ring, so there was no need to pay attention to the Downlords who were hiding on the continent. Since they wanted to be hermits, they could do so for the rest of their lives. Anyway, he did not expect them to have any influence. Redtail sneered when she heard this. Inform them that the Lord will arrive in 3 days. Chase the 15 representatives away, and let them inform the people behind them. If they arrive later than the Lord, then go back and prepare to collect the corpses. Understood. Lin Yunyun had long been used to Redtail's ruthless ways. She quickly bowed and retreated. Her movements were so efficient that they did not resemble her from a few days ago. As she watched the young girl leave, Redtail's gaze finally softened a little, but it was immediately filled with the desire for power. Previously, when Gu Nan advanced to the 4th Order, she had thought that she had overreached herself. It was not easy to kill the Sand King, but in the end, a superior who was even more impossible to resist came. However, Gu Nan's action of delegating power to her made her feel relieved. This was a real big shot, and he did not have the time to fight for power with her. As long as she could complete the task assigned to her, he did not mind letting her enjoy power alone. He would even provide her with military support. This was more like a form of cooperation. Hadn't she gone through all the trouble to come here from the central galaxy just to pursue this? Redtail raised her head and looked at the night sky in the distance. Perhaps one day she would be able to return to that place, if such a day really came. Chapter 169. Planet Xianhuang was a planet with a very long history. Of course, in a sense, since ancient times, the history of all regions was the same. Those who could say that their heritage was deep were mostly because their inheritance had never been broken. Planet Xianhuang was such a planet. The title of Sect Master had been known to Planet Xianhuang since ancient times. Later, when the astral world was unified, the meaning of the term changed several times, but its noble status had never changed. However, today these sect masters, who used to be high and mighty, were gathered in a small courtyard. This was something that had only happened a few times in the tens of thousands of years of planet Xianhuang's history. The last time there was such a high density of sect masters was during a war, during a military conference. Ridiculous! This is ridiculous! In the small courtyard, Lin Yunyun just stood calmly in front of the group of sect masters, her expression unchanged. The previous shout came from an old man. This old man's surname was Pan, and no one knew his real name. All they knew was that he was called Qian Xian Sect Master, and was one of the masters of the largest dojo in the northern region. Even before Yi Chen disappeared, he was very respectful to this Qian Xian Sect Master, and would not neglect him. It was not only because he was powerful, but also because he had helped Yi Chen before he rose. He was even Yi Chen's backer. This was not an exception. Old Mr. Pan was famous for his forthrightness and righteousness. He also had a high reputation among the sect masters. In the past, he often helped the younger generation. Even among the current group of sect masters, there were people who had been helped by him. There are 15 fellow cultivators who are in the outer region and can't make it back in time. Does that lord want to kill them all? Faced with Lin Yunyun's message, old Mr. Pan was the first to question. Without waiting for Lin Yunyun to answer, one of the sect masters immediately followed. That's right. We sect masters usually have our own affairs to deal with. We're not idlers. How can we all wait in the dojo to be summoned? Even the two Master Luo, who have been in charge of the galaxy for hundreds of years, have never heard of such a principle. Even if you're at the break realm level, you still have to be reasonable, don't you? However, in the face of such a scene, Lin Yunyun only looked at it coldly. She waited until the crowd calmed down before she unhurriedly threw out a sentence. I've already passed the message. Whether you listen or not is up to you. After saying this, Lin Yunyun left without looking back. The Tao Masters had never been treated like this before. Someone immediately shouted, "How dare you! You!" However, he was stopped by someone. He turned around and saw that it was the Qian Xian sect master, old Mr. Pan. Elder Pan, old Mr. Pan shook his head gently and said in a deep voice, "Don't be impulsive." The Daolord took a deep breath and waved his hand. A female Daolord beside him said, "Elder Pan is right. Now that the whereabouts of the two Lord Luo are unknown, we can't fight that person head-on. Sigh. If only that person could be like Lord Luo and be a hands-off shopkeeper." The enraged Tao Lord shook his head and sighed. He also came from the northern region. His Taoist name was Bluestone, and he was an expert with a saber. Before Yi Chen's rise, this Bluestone Daolord was the most famous genius in the northern region. His life was legendary. Because of this, it was difficult for him to accept being looked down upon by a junior. However, what he said was true. In the era of Luo Jie and Luo Fei, the two siblings did not care about what the Daolords did. They only cared about their own business. Even when someone accidentally provoked a powerful enemy from the outer realm, they would come out to uphold justice. They had a conscience. Now, however, Lord Gunan wanted to unify the Xianhuang planet. Looking at his posture, it seemed that he wanted to take in everyone. This was something that the Daolords could not accept. They had worked hard for 100 years, and you want to take it away with just one sentence? That was too much of a joke. That person needs a stable Xianhuang planet under his control, the female Daolord, Song Lian, said. The female Taoist master, Song Lian, said, "As long as we can help him achieve this, there is no conflict." That's right. The vision of such a big shot is no longer on this planet. Why do you want to make things difficult for us? That red tail is just pretending to be powerful. It's not impossible for us to replace him. Master Song Lian's words immediately resonated with many Daolords. Those who could sit here were not stupid. Even Bluestone Daolord might have been putting on an act. With the two siblings, Luo Jie and Luo Fei, in front of them, they naturally thought that it was impossible for a powerhouse to steal from them. However, that person had just been promoted, so it was impossible for his vision to change suddenly. That was why he was so obsessed with territory. As long as he could be given a stable Xianhuang planet, he would naturally be satisfied. After a few discussions, Elder Pan finally came out and concluded, "Since everyone has this idea, in 3 days, we will persuade that master like this." In a remote town in the south of the Xianhuang planet, a man was sitting in a small room in a hotel, drinking wine with a cold expression. "Big brother." Accompanied by a soft moan, the girl lying on the shabby bed slowly woke up and immediately opened her mouth to call out. Luo Jie quickly walked over to his sister. Seeing that she was awake, he felt relieved. Luo Fei opened her eyes and looked around. Her head was waking up. She realized her situation and asked, "Big brother, are we still on Xianhuang planet?" Luo Jie nodded. "That asterisk shoal. He had his men take control of all the starship dock. We have no way of getting out." "It's all my fault, big brother." "What are you talking about? We are just trapped for a while. When you are healed, where can we not go?" Luo Fei gnashed her teeth. She looked determined. After all, she was a break world-class person. How could she cry like a little girl? After Luo Fei regained her senses, she asked, "What about that day's palace?" "It was destroyed." "That person did it," Luo Jie said with a gloomy face. "Even Xian was taken away." Luo Fei's face suddenly turned white. Her body started to shake. "Big brother, we have to save Xian." Luo Fei grabbed Luo Jie's sleeves. Her cheeks were tight. Luo Jie was silent for a while. He said, "There is only one way. I went to Sky Palace Island to take a look. That place has not been discovered yet." Luo Fei was shocked. She knew what her big brother was talking about. The two of them had been very concerned about Xianhuang Planet for many years. Any break world class that entered was treated with hostility. It was all because of that thing. "We have been hiding for so many years. It is time to end this." Luo Fei looked serious. "Let's let that guy." Chapter 170. When Red Tail's report reached Gunan, he was trying to enter the fairy demon world for the 5th time. Of course, the result was a failure. The world's repulsive power was still there, but it was getting weaker each time. After a while, he would be able to enter again. There are path leaders on the planet ring, and they have 63 of them. Not bad. Gunan nodded. If these people are obedient, it will save me a lot of trouble. Gunan needed to control planet Xianhuang as soon as possible. It was not just to hide the white mist, but it was also to find Luo Jie and Luo Fei. Although Gunan was confident he could seriously injure the two of them, if not kill them, the problem now was that he could not meet them. The battles of this world were not about people showing off their power. It was not as simple as the weak killing themselves. If you wanted to kill someone, you had to find them first. Gunan had once made many people afraid of him because of this. Now, things had changed. It was his turn to stand in the position of a strong person. But Gunan was different from those big shot. In his bones, he did not care about the survival of his faction. Even if one day the white mist was slapped away, it would only take a little time. After all, the steps of the translation method were all in Gunan's mind. "In that case, I hope you will listen to me." Gunan's lips curled into a cold smile. He stepped forward and appeared on the planet ring. 4 world breakers, space was something they could do with. Deep Sea King could instantly travel from the central system to planet Xianhuang. Gunan could do the same. "He is here." Red Tail looked at the shadow that was descending from the sky. He spoke softly. "You should go and rest. Have you been tired these past few days?" Lin Yunyun shook her head. She actually liked doing things. It would be even better if it had nothing to do with people. "Mom, are you not going to greet him?" "There's no need. Most of those big shots don't care about these customs." Red Tail just smiled and said. She prided herself on being a good judge of character, especially Gunan. He almost never hid his thoughts and had always been straightforward. He didn't even care about most of the white mist's power, so of course he wouldn't care about this. However, just because he didn't hide it didn't mean that he was easy to make use of. Red Tail had seen many smart people in his life. Some of them survived and some of them died. The ratio of the latter was no lower than the average person. In other words, in the face of unparalleled power, being smart or not was meaningless. As Red Tail walked to his exclusive quiet room, he warned himself in his heart, "I must be careful not to let my desire for power affect the loyalty I've shown." As she thought about this, she casually opened the door, but she couldn't help but be stunned. Because in front of her, there was a woman with a wooden expression, quietly sitting in her seat. This woman was dressed in a bright yellow palace robe. Her long hair was casually scattered on both sides, but it didn't seem messy at all. Instead, there was a strange sense of beauty. Red Tail's pupils shrank slightly. She did not sense the existence of the other party at all. Even when the other party had clearly appeared, she could not sense it. It was as if this person was just an illusion. "You are... Hello, my name is Shuiyan." The woman's voice was very soft, and her words were also very polite, but her tone was still wooden. "I want to ask you about something." "Hello. What is it?" Red Tail smiled and greeted her, then casually turned on the light. Under the pure white light, she finally revealed what she wanted to confirm, but the result might not be what she wanted. This woman named Shui Yen did not have a shadow. "He's here. That lord is here." In the small courtyard, the Tao masters appeared one by one and looked at the sky. Although they couldn't see anything, the fluctuations of the aura there couldn't be hidden from them. They also understood that this was the aura that person deliberately released to let them know in advance. Otherwise, how could they detect the arrival of a realm breaker in advance? Gu Nan slowly walked out of the void, and his appearance was no different from before. He still maintained the appearance of a mortal. However, the Tao masters all bowed and said, "Greetings, Your Excellency." Gu Nan just waved his hand casually. "Let's get down to business." Qian Xian Tao Master Old Mr. Pan stood at the forefront of the Tao Masters. He glanced at Gu Nan's side, and after confirming that Red Tail wasn't with him, he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. That Red Tail thought that he could sit back and relax because of his position. He was too lax. Female Tao Master Tsong Lian was the first to speak. "We will naturally follow Your Excellency's order, but there is one thing I need to clarify. The Lord summoned us in a hurry, and there are still 15 Taoists. Let them." Gu Nan interrupted. "I will form a new organization, and everyone's dojos must be moved together and unified control. In 3 days, all dojos that don't belong to us on the Star Ring will be destroyed." After a pause, Gu Nan's cold gaze swept across the crowd. "Who objects?" There was an oppressive silence among the group of Tao Masters. Some of them paled, some of them widened their eyes, but no one made a sound. Old Mr. Pan lowered his eyes, and his hands seemed to be trembling slightly. This wasn't a discussion, this was an announcement. Was this how a lofty world breaker should be? "That's impossible." Bluestone Tao Master was the first to object. "The dojos are our foundation. If we move them so easily, won't the title of Tao Master become a joke?" His expression left no room for discussion. Even when the two Luos were around, they didn't say anything like that. Gu Nan's cold gaze landed on Bluestone Tao Master. The next moment, a pitch-black shadow wrapped around his neck, and the genius Tao Master's head suddenly fell to the ground. Even before his advancement, Gu Nan had killed Tao Masters like they were dogs. Now, he could do it even more effortlessly. "Who objects?" Gu Nan asked calmly. Gu Nan's words were not deliberately cold, but the alienation that seeped out from his bones was like a bucket of cold water, rendering the Tao Masters speechless. Old Mr. Pan glanced at the head at his feet, his expression unchanged. He only said, "We have no objections, but there is one thing I don't understand." "What is it?" "I wonder if the leader of the new organization is Red Tail in the white fog." The old Xian Xian Tao Master's tone was calm, and there was no change in his expression. But from the expressions of the people behind him, it was not difficult to tell that this was the key question they wanted to ask. Relying on a world breaker was not a shameful thing. On the contrary, going against such a person was stupid. The only thing the Tao Masters did not want to see was Red Tail forcefully adding a link to the matter, making it impossible to convey his intentions directly to them. Chapter 171. Qing sure died in vain. In the courtyard, Azure Ripple Sect Master sighed softly. She and Azure Ripple Sect Master were familiar with each other, but she didn't expect that one sentence would bring about a fatal disaster. At this time, Gu Nan had already left, and the sect masters also gradually dispersed. Most of them gathered together and discussed the situation of the post-Air Luo era. In other words, planet Xianwang was really going to become the Gu clan's world. Everyone naturally knew about that person's background, including his real name. That's Qing Shi's personality. Another sect master sighed. He always advocated seeking peace through conflict. I didn't expect to meet someone he couldn't fight this time. Azure Ripple Sect Master nodded lightly. Seeking peace through conflict. Everyone understood this principle, but most of the time, it didn't work. Just like before that person's arrival, everyone said that the 100-year-old foundation must not be touched lightly. But in the end, only Qing Shi stood up for it. Even old Mr. Pan, she couldn't help but glance over. This Qian sect master was chatting and laughing with a few people. It didn't seem like he had just lost a companion. The position of direct communication with that person naturally couldn't fall into Redtail's hands. So who should she give it to? The highly respected old Mr. Pan. The corners of Azure Ripple Sect Master's mouth curled into a smile. Then, he looked down at his graceful body. Of all the suitable candidates, she was the only one who was a woman. Until the woman left, Redtail felt her consciousness blur. It was very unusual for someone of her cultivation to be in such a state. She walked out of the door again. The cold moonlight shone on her face, making her a little more clear-headed. Was it a spiritual ability? She couldn't even remember what she had asked. A bitter smile appeared on Redtail's face. It seemed that she had provoked another important person. What was her name again? Shuiyan? Shuiyan? Redtail found that she could no longer remember her name. Even her appearance was rapidly blurring. She wanted to pick up her pen and write down useful information, but found that the memory dissipated even faster. When the tip of the pen landed on the paper, her mind was completely blank. The only thing she could remember was the scene that sent a chill straight to her head when she thought about it. She had no shadow. 3 days later, the sect masters moved all the dojo locations according to Gu Nan's orders, and they moved all of them to the mainland. As for the rest of the dojos in Starlink that hadn't received orders or whose dojos weren't home, Gu Nan kept his promise and destroyed them all without hesitation. Now, only the White Mist remained in Starlink. Moreover, the White Mist's range had shrunk. Gu Nan had put in a lot of effort to hide the location of the White Mist. Whether it was on the continent or in Star Ring, blanket searches were unavoidable. On the other hand, if Starlink appeared to be completely empty, it wouldn't attract anyone's attention. This was the blind spot of Shifeng's thinking. Once this generation of people who knew about the dojo on Celestial Ring passed away, this secret could be preserved for a long time. Lan Si also came out of seclusion on this day, but this was a coincidence. Gu Nan did not expect it in advance. So, you need me to take over another organization? She asked Gu Nan. Her tone was a little strange, but her expression was much calmer than before. After doing things on her own and being seriously injured, she seemed to have matured a lot. People always had to grow slowly, except for people like Gu Nan. Yes, this time it's an organization that wants to control the entire continent, said Gu Nan with a smile. Lan Si pursed her lips, as if she was worried that she couldn't do it well. Help me think of a name. I can't use the previous one anymore. Lan Si had previously established a small organization called Blue Water Lake on the continent. Of course, after she went into seclusion, the organization was disbanded. Gu Nan had never been talented at coming up with names, so he casually said, Planet Black-Yellow Standing Committee, or Black-Yellow Standing Committee for short. That's it. Then what's my position? Lan Si asked with wide eyes. Chairman. Everything was carried out in an orderly manner. After all, with Gu Nan's absolute power as the backing, anyone who was disorderly would die. Under Gu Nan's bad taste, the Black-Yellow Standing Committee was officially established and began to take over the governance and management of the entire Black-Yellow planet. Lan Si was the chairman, and Redtail was one of the 3 vice-chairmen. As for the Interstellar Federation government, it basically existed in name only, and even the officials had to accept the assignment from this side. Of course, the fact that the government's power was so low here actually had little to do with Gu Nan. As early as the Erluo period, because of the exclusion of the siblings, it was difficult for the Federation to intervene. Speaking of the Luo siblings, This was what gave Gu Nan a headache. Time passed day by day, and the two of them seemed to have evaporated from the world and never appeared again. However, Gu Nan arranged shadow bodies to keep an eye on the places they might go or the people they might care about. Once there was any movement, he would be the first to know. Don't think too much about it. If these two people don't come out, there's nothing I can do about them. Leveling up is the most important thing. With Lan Si's continuous cultivation, Gu Nan's sin value had reached 530 points, but his skill points were only 300, only 200 points more than before. After the first pass of the private dungeon, the subsequent rewards would be greatly reduced, which Gu Nan already knew. However, what surprised him was that after the Splendid World dungeon was completed, it was not to enter the Heavenly Star Path again, but a separate small space. Even Zwa Zwa and the other two disappeared, and he became a solo player, but the difficulty was the same as before. Is it because the world's origin has been consumed, so it is no longer possible to enter the Heavenly Star Path? Gu Nan couldn't help but think of what Purple Will and Red Tail said. The principle that the Star Lords said might not be correct, but the phenomenon would never be wrong. After all, the latter was the conclusion. However, Gu Nan didn't care about going solo. Although the reward was pitiful, it was still a fixed source of income. In addition, he was also letting the people of White Mist complete more world missions as soon as possible. When the next private dungeon appeared, he would have more test subjects. On the other side, the exploration of the immortal and demon world didn't stop, but there was still no progress. This was a long-term task. In order to better experiment, some of the people in White Mist were also arranged by Gu Nan to go to the immortal and demon world to investigate the local situation. If necessary, Gu Nan didn't mind returning to Red Carp to take control of care for one's family. On this day, in a certain corner of the continent, Gu Nan was lying on the beach, basking in the sun, bored while waiting for his subordinate's report. Red Tail appeared behind him. "Sir, the people from Shanghai Pavilion have arrived." Her first sentence was enough to shock many people. However, Gu Nan only opened his eyes slightly and asked doubtfully, "Why are they here?" Chapter 172. Every Break World person was a real big shot. They were hard to kill and they had the power to break space. Even the Star Leader could not stop them from coming and going. So, as the official organization of the Star World, the Star Sea Pavilion was never stingy with its respect for world break takers. Considering power, and other factors, Shanghai Pavilion gave world breakers star seals of different levels: Meteor Class, Star Class, and Star Class. Gu Nan scoffed at such classification because such classification could no longer correspond to his evil god system. In the game, there was no more content to show from level 4 onward. Players needed to integrate the gameplay and create their own rules. Of course, the requirement for sin points was not low. 500, 1000, and 1500 points. When players reached these 3 tipping points, they could create a rule. 500 points was required to level up to level 4. The exclusive rule was the core skill lore. The other 2 rules required the player to extract and create them. The number of points needed for this was naturally an astronomical figure. Gu Nan did not know if the World Breakers had a number of exclusive rules, but it was not purely based on power. For example, Deep Sea King, who had been hurt by Gu Nan's sword, was a Star-class World Breaker. He could not beat Gu Nan, who had just leveled up. A Star-class seal? Gu Nan played with the Star Seal, which looked like a badge, and laughed. Mr. Gu Nan defeated Deep Sea King, so he has the right to have it, the Shanghai Pavilion's ambassador said calmly. Her face did not show any emotion. It was just numb. Gu Nan looked at the girl. He smiled and said, "Sending out 2 world breakers to be ambassadors. Shanghai Pavilion is very generous. What is your name?" Shuiyan. The girl looked at Gu Nan's face. She could not be described as numb. She looked sluggish. If his own rules did not tell Gu Nan that the person standing in front of him was a level 4 elite, he would have believed she was a girl with dementia. As for the other emissary, he seemed much more reliable. This man, who was dressed in black, stood beside Shui Yen and didn't speak. He just kept sizing up Gu Nan. He looked like a young man, but he was actually not that old. He was only 200 years old. He was very young for a break world. His name was Zhou Xiaojing, and he was a direct descendant of Xinghai Pavilion. Even in the Central Galaxy, he was an extremely famous cultivator. Red Tail was standing behind Gu Nan. She looked at the young messenger of Xinghai Pavilion and frowned. She vaguely felt that the person in front of her was very familiar. She seemed to have seen him one night, but her memory was very vague. Red Tail could not confirm whether it was her or not. She realized that her memory had been deceived, or it could have been deliberately set up by someone else to make her think that it was her. Besides, she looked behind Shui Yen and saw an elongated shadow. There was a shadow. Red Tail was even less confident in her judgment. According to the rules, the Star Sea Pavilion hopes that you can make a trip to the Central Starfield, Shui Yen said expressionlessly as if it was a routine matter. I will go when I have time, Gu Nan replied casually. He had a lot of things to do. The fairy demon world, the private dungeon, the Luo siblings. Each of them took up a lot of his time. He did not have time to go to the Central Galaxy. Before Zhuozhua left, she told him to go to the Central Galaxy, so Gu Nan did not want to go. Who knew what was waiting for him there? Gu Nan was not interested in the secrets of the Star Masters. He just wanted to level up. Facing Gu Nan's answer, Shui Yen still nodded. Zhou Xiaojing suddenly said, If you don't go to the Central Galaxy, you are not a break world recognized by Xinghai Pavilion. You should think about this carefully. Gu Nan did not even look at him. He just looked at Shui Yen and said, Is there anything else? No. Shui Yen shook her head, then turned around and walked out. Zhou Xiaojing was stunned. He could not help but say, Miss Shui, all break world must go to Xinghai Pavilion to officially receive the seal. This is the rule of the pavilion. Shui Yen turned around. Her expression was still stiff, but there seemed to be some confusion in her eyes. Is that so? If he does not go, what do you usually do? When Shui Yen said the question, it seemed to become a statement. Her tone did not change at all. Gu Nan looked at the two of them, amused. This Miss Shui Yen was a bit too honest. Wasn't this telling others that she was someone who intervened at the last minute? Zhou Xiaojing felt like he was going crazy. Why did the headquarters send someone like this? And why did they want him to help her? But he was a professional, so he quickly adjusted his mood. He looked at Gu Nan seriously and said, Mr. Gu Nan, all break world must be registered at Xinghai Pavilion. Otherwise, they will be seen as foreigners. If you do not want to go, then we will have to ask you to go. Zhou Xiaojing looked proud, but he did not feel much emotion. He was trying to gain the upper hand. First, he made outrageous demands. When the other side could not accept it and became angry, he would take a step back. It was a strategy of first and then retreat. This was not the first time Zhou Xiaojing had done something like this. He knew he had to get rid of the break world's arrogance. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to do things. Gu Nan looked at him and lowered his head to think. Finally, he pulled out his sword and slashed. The black longsword came out of thin air. Before anyone could react, it came slashing toward Zhou Xiaojing. Are you crazy? Zhou Xiaojing's face changed. His body flashed and flew 30 feet away. He managed to dodge Gu Nan's sword. He was still scared. He looked at Gu Nan and shouted, Gu Nan, are you really going to be an enemy of Xinghai Pavilion? Gu Nan held his sword and stood where he was. He expressionlessly said, I was just imagining things. I think we will have to fight in the end. Let's not talk crap. Zhou Xiaojing felt like he was going to cough up blood. Do you understand what it means to go first and go back? Do you understand asking for sky-high prices? Before we even started talking, you flipped the table. Who plays like that? His mouth twitched. He angrily waved his sleeves and said, You two psychopaths go talk. Do whatever you want. After saying this, he turned around and left without hesitation. He was only here to help Shanghai Pavilion pass on a message. Whether or not Gu Nan went was none of his business. He did not want to get involved. Gu Nan saw him leave, but he did not put away his sword. Instead, he looked at Shuiyan. Shuiyan nodded slightly and said, Then, I will leave too. She turned around and left for the second time. However, when she was about to leave Gu Nan's sight, she turned around again. Gu Nan did not know if he was wrong, but there was a smile in her eyes. Chapter 173. The two envoys from Shanghai Pavilion came and left quickly. They only left a star seal for Gu Nan. It doesn't look special. Gu Nan tossed the badge up and down. There were some strange patterns engraved on it, but it didn't have the slightest energy fluctuation. Red Tail said from the side, It is said that after the star seal is activated by Shanghai Pavilion, it can have some strange ultra-long-distance communication functions. Oh, why didn't that person say so earlier? Seriously. Gu Nan casually complained. Red Tail's face darkened slightly. She thought to herself that the other party had said it later and planned to use it as a bargaining chip. Who knew that he would directly cut it off? She only dared to say this in her mind. Gu Nan played with it for a while and felt that it was meaningless, so he put it away again. Are there any new developments in the past few days? Gu Nan asked again. He was now using Red Tail as a secretary. Several matters of concern were handed over to her to sort out before showing to him. Lan Si was his general agent. In the future, this part of the work might be replaced by Lan Si, but now this, Chairman Lan, was too busy dealing with his own matters. There is still no news of those two. We have already sent more people to keep an eye on the ruins of the Heavenly Palace and Luo Xen. The Luo siblings would only be concerned about the Heavenly Palace and their daughter. Red Tail didn't need Gu Nan to say anything more. Our people have already started to settle in the immortal demon world. We have also roughly understood the local situation. Red Tail said and handed a document to Gu Nan. Regarding the general situation of a plane, it wasn't clear in a sentence or two. Only written information would suffice. In the current immortal demon world, there were roughly 3 forces competing with each other. The indigenous forces located in the west of the mainland. Since the flames of war ignited 2 years ago, the banner of Blue Dragon Hall was raised high again to fight against the invaders. And in the east, there was the strongest country and one sect that worked together to fight against the strong enemies in the west. Care for one's family should be supporting one of the countries. As for this inexplicable sect, Gu Nan touched his chin. If it wasn't another reincarnator who found this place, it should be Lu's family who intervened. When Gu Nan was in 66 Amaterasu, he didn't deliberately hide the existence of the immortal demon world. Instead, he directly handed the task of monitoring to Land Marigold. But for the current Gu Nan, the value of the immortal demon world was very low. He now had a private instance and he didn't lack materials to build a god kingdom. But for the current Gu Nan, the immortal demon world was the world. Have you seen this plane's half-life mode before? Red Tail shook his head. This is the first time White Mist has seen such a plane in so many years. By the way, milord, we also discovered that the power of Providence is especially active in the immortal demon world. Red Tail shook his head. It's the first time I've seen such a plane. Red Tail's eyes were full of excitement. Active. Gu Nan frowned and said in a deep voice, What does that mean? Immortal demon world. In the back hall of the Great Yin Dynasty, a young girl in simple Chinese clothes walked in slowly. The king of the Yin Kingdom, who was originally high and mighty, immediately jumped up from the dragon throne. The Yin Kingdom quickly ran to the young girl's side and said with a flattering smile, Miss. The young girl just waved her hand and said casually, I can't stay here for long. If you have something to say it quickly. This young girl was Gu Nian, whom Gu Nan hadn't seen for a long time. She was now a transcendent in the nuance realm. It was difficult for her to stay for long after reincarnation. This was also the biggest weakness of reincarnators. In fact, the high-end combat power of each country and sect was not weaker than the West. It was just that there were too few native powerhouses. A force made up entirely of reincarnators could be used as a sharp knife team, but it was impossible to support a war. Fortunately, the immortal demon world was rich in resources. Even if they didn't unify the world, reincarnating was not a loss. Otherwise, the family would have collapsed a long time ago. Seeing Gu Nian's expression, the Yen kingdom didn't dare to say anything else. He quickly said, "There's nothing else. It's just that there are a lot of talented youths in the kingdom recently. Isn't that a good thing?" Gu Nian raised her eyebrows. "Yes. But these young geniuses, all of them started off as wastrels." The Yen kingdom's voice lowered. "And there's news that there are many such examples in the West and in the Fate sect." Gu Nian frowned. Talented youths were normal, and it wasn't strange for trash to make a comeback. But it wasn't normal for such a large number of them to appear all over the world. "Give me the information on these people," she ordered. Her expression was a little gloomy. "Is it a change in the plane, or is someone manipulating it?" Gu Nian looked at the sky. There was a rare look of helplessness in his eyes. The same scene was happening in two other places in the immortal demon world. The only difference was that the main characters were Yen Xiaoxiao and Land Marigold. Gu Nan guessed wrongly. It wasn't Lu's family that was really involved in the immortal demon world. It was only Land Marigold. In this short period of time, she had already stepped into the transcendent level. Even her realm had caught up to Gu Nian's. She was already a nuance realm powerhouse. But considering her characteristics as a senior reincarnator, it wasn't surprising that she could do this. After all, reincarnators could take advantage of the loopholes in the laws of time. "There's nothing strange about it," she said coldly to the sect leader of the Fate sect, an old man she had personally promoted. "It's just a matter of luck. Pass down the order. During this period of time, all operations will be suspended." Land Marigold's expression became even colder. "If it's a change in the plane, then it's fine. If it's man-made, I'm afraid that some big shot has set his eyes on this place." On the western side of the continent, Yen Xiaoxiao, who had been fighting for many years, now had an even stronger aura of a leader. Even her words gave people a great deal of pressure. She sat on the main seat of Blue Dragon Hall. She didn't have much of a reaction to the counterattack of a group of losers. Yen Xiaoxiao didn't understand luck, nor did she understand the changes in the plane. She simply didn't care. The more genius disciples, the better. She instructed her subordinates. As long as they are willing, they can participate in the Blue Dragon Hall's test as soon as possible. We won't refuse anyone. "Yes, Hall leader." Everyone responded in unison. Under Yen Xiaoxiao's seat, hundreds of people formed a human dragon and bowed at the same time. This was the power of the world's #1 hall. Just as the three sides were reacting differently because of the appearance of luck, a figure was quietly standing above the immortal demon world, looking down on everything. Her expression was wooden, as if the expression on her face wouldn't change even after 10,000 years. "A strange world," she muttered to herself. "Exchange half of your divine soul? It's indeed similar to the two halves of that person's body. So, what exactly do you want to do?" She raised her head. It was as if she could see Gu Nan's face from infinitely far away. There was an unfathomable smile on his face. Chapter 174. Gu Nan did not know that someone had linked the strange phenomenon of the fairy demon world to the two halves of Zhuo's body. But even if he knew, he would not care. He never cared about what others thought. After returning from the fairy demon world, Gu Nan was expelled by the power of the world. But he understood the process of exchanging souls more and more. Gu Nan did not have many opportunities to observe the origin of the world. Most of the origin was transformed by the evil god's hall and turned into something he needed. That was why when Gu Nan needed to understand it himself, his progress was slow. Fortunately, he was not short of time. In the fairy demon world, when the highly active luck was discovered, the people of the White Mist were motivated. They began to organize a lot of people to go there. So, in a short time, a lot of luck was produced, which greatly accelerated the changes in the world. Gu Nan didn't take this to heart. There was nothing he cared about in the immortal devil world for the time being. In the Sky Palace Island ruins, whether it was the White Mist or the Black-Yellow Standing Committee, they had arranged a lot of people there to monitor any possible movements. Even one of Gu Nan's shadow bodies was lurking here. But no matter how many people there were, they could not find traces of the Luo siblings. That was because the two of them were 3,000 meters below the ground. No matter how strong the detection method was, it was impossible to find enemies in that position, especially when the targets were two world breakers. Luo Jie slowly walked into the dark underground. His sister, Luo Fei, was floating in the underground tunnel. Her body was emitting a faint white light, and there was a scary bloody hole in front of her. However, the injury that Gu Nan had left on her still showed no signs of recovery. This was the shadow power that had been stacked dozens of times. The super dense rules that remained completely suppressed Luo Fei's own rule power. In front of Luo Fei, there was a giant silver crystal. Between the crystal and Luo Fei, there seemed to be an invisible bond. A lot of power was being transmitted to her. With the continuous transmission of power, Luo Fei's life force was becoming stronger and stronger. Her face was full of pain, and she could not help but moan. Even a break world elite could not bear it. One could only imagine what kind of pain it was. Luo Jie looked at his little sister's trembling body and couldn't help but feel sorry for her. They had discovered this hidden treasure many years ago, but they had never dared to use it rashly, because the price they had to pay was too high, and there was a considerable risk involved. If it wasn't for Xian or this time, Luo Jie thought of the guy who hurt his sister and destroyed the Heavenly Palace Hall, and his face gradually became ferocious. At this time, the light in Luo Fei's eyes suddenly disappeared, and she fell to the ground. Luo Jie hurriedly went forward to help his sister up. Luo Fei slowly opened her eyes and said weakly, "Brother, one more day, and I will be able to leave this place. But your body..." Luo Jie looked down at his sister in his arms. Her entire right hand was swollen and wet. This wasn't some sort of illness. Rather, it was because the power of the crystal had entered Luo Fei's body but was unable to be completely absorbed. Although this power was powerful, it was not something that the human body could withstand. If that wasn't the case, they wouldn't have waited until today to act. "It's okay." A fierce look appeared on Luo Fei's face. "I only need to control it, and it will be enough to kill that person." Luo Jie was silent. He knew that the pain his sister had suffered these days was naturally all on Gu Nan. "But we have to save Xian first." Luo Fei had not completely lost her mind. She still cared about her daughter. "Of course." Luo Jie finally smiled. "I have found a way to lure the tiger away from the mountain." Under Gu Nan's intentional guidance, even a part of the White Mist had been moved away from Star Ring. Now, the White Mist was divided into two parts. Only a few departments related to reincarnation remained in Star Ring, while the rest moved to the mainland. Gu Nan usually lived in the White Mist's mainland base. On this day, everything seemed to be going on as usual, but there was one more thing that Gu Nan had recently paid attention to: the rectification of the Black-Yellow Planet continent. The word unification was not something that could be explained in one sentence. Even if Gu Nan had an absolute advantage in power, Lan Si and the others would still encounter all kinds of trouble. If they encountered those who resisted by force, it would be fine as they could directly suppress them. However, there were always some who pretended to obey but secretly opposed, and even used Lan Si and the others to eliminate dissidents. No matter how authoritative the leader was, his subordinates would have their own countermeasures to deal with them, and in the end, they could even leave him speechless. Lan Si had been troubled by this recently. After all, she rarely came into contact with such practices and had to ask Gu Nan for help from time to time. Gu Nan was even less likely to understand these things. What he meant was, you can play however you want. Even if you pierce the sky, I can still block it. That Miss Lan seems to be a rookie. Isn't that right? I thought that the agent would be a smart person, but I didn't expect. Maybe she's pretending? Maybe she's waiting for us to act recklessly. Such comments could be seen everywhere in the Xian Wang Standing Committee. Song Lian Dao Master heard several people talking and couldn't help but cough lightly. Those people were startled. When they turned around and saw who it was, they hurriedly saluted and said, "Greetings, Master Song Lian." Song Lian Dao Master nodded lightly and then said, "Don't talk about such nonsense, all of you can leave. Du Chuan, you stay." Several people looked at each other and didn't dare to say anything more. They left one after another, leaving only the man named Du Chuan. Seeing that there was no one around, Du Chuan whispered, "Master, rumors about Miss Lan are spreading everywhere, and old Mr. Pan's people are also. It's time to act." Song Lian Dao Master gently stroked her hair and said indifferently, "Are you sure that the Tang family is related to Lan Si? Miss Lan was seriously injured and was saved by the Tang family." Du Chuan looked solemn. "As long as we can provoke the Qian Xian dojo to seize the Tang family's real estate, Miss Lan will definitely not sit idly by, okay?" Song Lian Dao Master nodded and waved her hand. "Then let's do it." After saying this, Song Lian Dao Master quickly walked forward, as if she didn't want others to see her conversation with Du Chuan. But what she didn't see was that after she walked away, Du Chuan turned around and walked back with a strange smile on his face. Du Chuan walked out step by step. He, who had never tried to deceive a Dao master like this, finally couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Chapter 175. Many seemingly complicated schemes were not complicated at all as long as the intentions of the plotters were known. In the same scheme, everyone had their own intentions. For example, Song Lian Dao Master's goal was simple: to rise in power. Gu Nan's existence was unavoidable. It would be best if there was no one else under Gu Nan, and she could become the Lord's representative. In Song Lian Dao Master's eyes, Red Tail had obviously been abandoned by the Lord or was in charge of other affairs. Everything on the mainland had been handed over to Lan Si. That Lan Si, regardless of beauty, ability, or personal strength, could not be compared to him in any aspect. It's just because she has that person's trust. Song Lian Dao Master sneered. As long as she could wear down that person's trust in Lan Si, she believed that with her ability, she could completely replace Lan Si's position. There was nothing that Lan Si could do that she could not do. Miss Lan. Bad news." A servant hurried in from outside the door and said to Lan Si anxiously, "What happened now?" Lan Si turned her head impatiently. She was busy with all sorts of affairs and was in a state of irritation. "It's the Tang family." The servant finally caught his breath. "The Tang family and the people from Qian Xian dojo fought. I heard that someone died. Even Elder Pan went there." "What did you say?" Lan Si immediately stood up. If there was anyone else on this mainland besides Gu Nan that she cared about, it would definitely be the Tang family and Tang Xian. Not to mention the many times she had interacted with Tang Xian, just the help she received from the Tang family when she was managing Blue Water Lake was enough to make her remember this kindness. What exactly happened? After these days of experience, Lan Si was someone who had done things, and was not as impulsive as she had been at first. The servant hurriedly explained the situation. The whole story was simple. It was nothing more than the people from Qian Xian Dojo representing the organization to take over several of the Tang family's resource production areas, resulting in a conflict between the two sides. This kind of thing had happened many times in the past few days. Usually, any family that was dissatisfied would be directly suppressed, but this was the Tang family. Didn't I say that no one is allowed to touch the Tang family? How could such a thing happen? Lan Si said with a calm face and a cold voice. The servant broke out in a cold sweat. Lan Si impatiently waved her hand and said, "Forget it, hurry up and prepare to go to the Tang family's starship." By the time Lan Si hurried to the Tang clan, the scene had already been cleaned up. However, she was not in a good mood because the bodies of the deceased were still not collected. One of them was the corpse of old Mr. Pan's third disciple. After hearing this news, Lan Shi knew that this matter was going to be difficult. In the end, Lan Si was not like Gu Nan, who would not recognize his own family. During this period of time, Elder Pan could be said to have helped her a lot and at the same time, pointed out many of her mistakes. Therefore, she had some respect and even fear for this old man who was considered her subordinate. Miss Lan. Seeing Lan Si arrive, old Mr. Pan took the initiative to stand up and salute. His face was expressionless, but the sadness in his eyes could not be concealed. After all, Lan Si had never seen such a situation. She could only say dryly, "Old Mr. Pan, my condolences." Behind old Mr. Pan, Song Lian Taoist master silently rolled his eyes. He thought to himself, "Isn't this person a little too inexperienced? Who would soften their attitude the moment they arrived? How was she going to speak up for the Tang family? If Lan Si really softened, then it would be difficult to deal with." So she said, "Miss Lan, you came at the right time. This Tang family is extremely daring. They even dared to kill old Mr. Pan's disciple. In my opinion, why don't we just kill the entire family and get it over with?" "How can we do that?" Lan Si immediately cried out in shock. At this moment she heard a low voice from beside her. "You are Lan Si?" Lan Si turned her head and saw that Tang Xian's face was covered in blood. Her limbs had been pierced by a sharp weapon. She could only hang her head low. Tang Xian Jia? Lan Si's eyes widened in disbelief. Even her voice was trembling. In the next moment she flew to Tang Xian's side. A Qian Xian Dojo disciple stood in front of her and said, "Miss Lan, this is the person who killed my third senior. Please, scram." Lan Si, who was in a rage, had no time to think. Terrifying divine power instantly poured out and the azure light almost drowned the disciple. Old Mr. Pan frowned slightly. He took a step forward and carried his disciple away to prevent him from being injured by Lan Si, who had lost control of her emotions. "Not too weak," Dao Master Songlian commented with interest. Dao Master Songlian evaluated with great interest from the side. Lan Si's angry attack really did have some power. "Sister Tangxian, how are you?" Lan Si, who was flustered, only cared about stopping Tang Xian's bleeding as she asked. Tang Xian's face was still ashen. She smiled bitterly and said, "A life for a life is the law of the earth. I only hope that you can persuade that lord to let my Tang family live." Tang Xian knew better than Lan Si what kind of person Dao Master Qian Xian was. In her opinion, since she had killed this disciple, it was already inevitable that she would pay with her life. Even if Lan Si had Gu Nan behind her, would he be willing to offend a top-notch Dao Master for her? Lan Si said resolutely, "No, I won't let you die." Before Tang Xian could say anything, the disciples of Qian Xian Dojo became agitated. One of them said, "Miss Lan, are you going to protect this murderer? So it's because of Miss Lan. No wonder the Tang family is so arrogant." So what? He killed a disciple of Qian Xian Dojo, so he naturally has to pay with his life. Even if this lawsuit is taken to the higher-ups, we will still be in the right. The undisguised discussion caused Lan Si's face to turn green and white. "All of you, shut up." Old Mr. Pan frowned and shouted in a low voice. His disciple's excessive disrespect towards Lan Si gave him a bad premonition. However, he had no intention of backing down. Not to mention the fact that he could not disappoint the disciples. Just Lan Si's performance during this period of time was indeed not enough to earn his respect. After he had ordered the disciples to retreat, he cupped his fists towards Lan Si and said, "Miss Lan, this person killed my disciple. If you want to protect this person, please give this old man an explanation." Lan Si was stunned. What kind of explanation could she give? She had to protect Tang Xian, and old Mr. Pan did not seem to have any intention of backing down. Thus, she hesitated for a moment. Finally, she could not help but take out a small pitch-black sword and began to call out to the owner of the small sword. In the next moment, a black shadow gradually emerged from the small sword and formed into the shape of a human. "Yes, that's it." Tao Master Tsang Lian could not help but exclaim in his heart when he saw this scene. Faced with such a situation, Lan Si would definitely go back and find that person. However, even if it was that person, what could he do when faced with such a difficult situation? At most, he could use his prestige to appease one side, but there would definitely be one side that would be dissatisfied. On the other hand, no matter what the outcome was, this matter would not leave a good impression on that person, and Lan Si's impression of him would become more and more incompetent. Moreover, Tao Master Tsang Lian knew that if he was in that person's shoes, he would definitely stand on old Mr. Pan's side. After all, one side was a top-notch Tao Master, while the other side was just an unknown small family. If that person wanted to control the mainland, he would have to consider the hearts of the people. Qian Xian Dojo was doing its best. If it did not achieve a good result, wouldn't it disappoint everyone? The more he thought about it, the more certain Tao Master Tsang Lian was of that person's actions. He could not help but smile, but fortunately, he quickly concealed it. The black shadow slowly emerged from the small sword and condensed into the figure of Gu Nan. He looked coldly at the people around him. Old Mr. Pan was the first to bow and say, "My disciple died for no reason. Please seek justice for Qian Xian Dojo, sir." At this moment, Du Chuan, who was behind Tao Master Tsang Lian, gently crushed the talisman in his hand. In the headquarters of the White Mist on the mainland, two figures suddenly appeared. It was Luo Jie and Luo Fei. At this moment, Luo Jie looked excited. Chapter 176. When Gu Nan appeared in the Tang clan, both parties were at daggers drawn, and the atmosphere was at its most solemn. "My disciple died for no reason. Please seek justice for Qian Xian Training Hall." Elder Pan did not give Lan Si a chance to speak. He bowed and decided the nature of the matter. As his voice fell, the disciples of Qian Xian Training Hall behind him spoke at the same time. "Please seek justice for Qian Xian Training Hall." There were almost 100 disciples of Qian Xian Training Hall present, and all of them were elite. After all, a direct disciple of a path master had been killed. Any disciple with a bit of status would be present. Tang Xian felt even more bitter when she saw this. Qian Xian Training Hall's foundation was too strong. Even if Elder Pan himself was excluded, no one could underestimate their strength. Path Master Tsang Lian lowered his head slightly and took a step back. She knew better than anyone why Qian Xian Training Hall was so strong. Elder Pan's hundreds of years of teaching and accumulation had made Qian Xian Training Hall a very cohesive training hall. For example, one of Elder Pan's Tao Master disciples was still in the Qian Xian Tao Rite. He clearly had the ability to open his own training hall, but he was still willing to stay by his teacher's side. This was enough to show how strong Qian Xian Training Hall was. Even a world-breaking figure would have to consider the feelings of the people when facing such a Qian Xian Training Hall. They could not act recklessly, however. Gu Nan did not even look at them. He turned to Lan Si and said, "What is it?" Lan Si took a deep breath and felt a little more at ease. Since Gu Nan was willing to listen to her, there was at least a chance to salvage the situation. It was Sister Tang Xian who accidentally killed Elder Pan's third disciple. She knew that she did not have many opportunities to speak, so she tried to be concise. She did not accidentally kill him. A voice took over Lan Si's words and said loudly. Everyone looked over, only to see a person walking out from behind Elder Pan and speaking casually. This person wore a long blue robe and had a scholarly air about him. He did not look like a cultivator, but more like a scholar. However, those who knew his identity did not dare to treat him as a scholar. He was the only disciple among old Mr. Pan's disciples who was willing to stay by his side after becoming a Taoist master. He was also known as the three absolutes of poetry, calligraphy, and sword, Taoist Sanju. Taoist Sanju looked very young, and his personality was like a young man's. My third junior brother died in the hands of this woman because he was working for the organization. If Sir and Miss Lan insist on protecting this person, I'm afraid it will disappoint everyone. Taoist Sanju's expression was cold, but there was a hint of smugness in his eyes. So what if he was a break world elite? The books were very clear. The world was big, but the truth was the most important. No matter what, they were in the right. What was there to be afraid of? Gu Nan calmly looked over and casually waved his hand. A shadow force instantly blasted onto Taoist Sanju. Pooh! It was as if the young Tao Lord had been punched in the chest, and he spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. His entire body was sent flying, and he crashed heavily into the ceiling on the other side. When he fell, it was unknown whether he was dead or alive, and he even injured a few people in the process. Sir! Old Mr. Pan's eyes widened in anger. No matter how well-mannered he was, he could not help but be enraged and almost question him. Fortunately, his last bit of rationality allowed him to remember the identity of the person in front of him. This was a break-world elite who could kill them as easily as killing chickens. Gu Nan looked at Lan Si again. Even his tone did not change. He was still calm. I'm asking what you're going to do. I didn't give you that sword to use as a phone. I gave it to you to kill all those who oppose me. Gu Nan's voice echoed slowly. Lan Si was still in a daze. She had never thought of this before, and it was difficult for her to accept it. Songlian Daolord also looked over in shock. She did not expect Gu Nan to do something like this. Did he not care about the hearts of others? Did he not care about what his subordinates thought? On the other side, the people of Qian Taoist Rite were already furious. Not everyone was afraid of death, especially when they were bullied. Many people could explode with shocking toughness. F***ck. Can an important person be unreasonable? Brothers, let's fight him. That's right. There are no cowards in Qian Taoist Rite. Let's fight. Shut up. Elder Pan shouted as he listened to the noise around him. His eyes were wide open, and he managed to stop the commotion of the crowd. He then slowly turned around and suppressed the anger in his heart. In a deep voice, he said, Qian Taoist Rite will withdraw from the Standing Committee of Xianhuang. We will seal our mountain for 100 years. Elder Pan. Master. A group of disciples could not help but cry out. Two of their brothers, one was dead and the other was injured. Elder Pan was forced to lower his head. They had never felt such humiliation before. After Elder Pan said this, he maintained his bowing posture. However, after waiting for a long time, he found that Gu Nan did not even look at him. Did you hear me clearly? If you heard me clearly, then do it. Gu Nan pointed at the people in front of him and said to Lan Si. Lan Si was shocked. She did not expect that Gu Nan was not being harsh. He was really. Elder Pan was also stunned. He said angrily, Master, you have the world in your heart. Are you even this petty? Bang! An even stronger shadow force appeared and directly blasted Elder Pan into a cloud of blood mist. Blood mixed with pieces of flesh splattered everywhere, splattering all over the people. The whole place fell into a dead silence. Only Gu Nan could speak calmly. Did you see that? If you don't kill them, they will kill you and all the Tang family members. If you let one go, there will be one more person watching the Tang family day and night. Gu Nan's voice was like the whisper of an abyss devil. It pushed Lan Si's bottom line back bit by bit until her heart was completely occupied by killing intent. Lan Si lowered her head and looked at the small black sword in her hand. An inexplicable information flowed into her mind. It was about the true power of the small sword. Gu Nan's figure had already floated far away and landed not far away. Only his voice was still ringing in Lan Si's ears. As long as you have absolute power, what the world thinks of you is meaningless. If one person curses you, kill one person. If you are condemned by 1,000 people, kill 1,000. Kill until the remaining people are afraid. Naturally, no one will oppose you. The person who can control the life and death of others will obtain the key to freedom. The words that sounded like murmurs kept ringing in Lan Si's ears. The girl's eyes became redder and redder. Her body had already begun to move unconsciously. The moment before Lan Si pounced into the crowd, Song Lien Dao Master quietly retreated and came to stand behind Gu Nan. She knew that her plan had completely failed, but it was not impossible for her to achieve her goal. "Milord, do you want to seal the news or inform the organization as soon as possible that Qian Xian Dao Master gathered people to cause trouble today and violated the organization's rules? He only has himself to blame," Song Lien Dao Master said respectfully. There was a hint of pride in her eyes. She believed that since Gu Nan had made up his mind to eliminate the Qian Xian dojo, he would definitely seal the news. At the same time, she would also want to smear Elder Pan's name. No matter how many people believed in the end, there was no proof. Could they still ask Elder Pan for confirmation? Song Lien Dao Master smiled. While everyone was shocked by Gu Nan's actions, she was the only one who thought about how to deal with the aftermath. Could it be that this person did not like such a smart person? Why? Gu Nan asked in surprise. He did not seem to be pretending at all. Therefore, Song Lien Dao Master was even more surprised than him. She subconsciously said, if this matter were to spread, everyone would be in danger. Chapter 177. Two figures quickly searched the White Mist headquarters. With the strength of these two people at the 4th level, it didn't take them long to find the person they were looking for. A little girl who looked like a porcelain doll was practicing her swordsmanship with difficulty. There were beads of sweat on the tip of her nose. "XN air!" Luo Fei called out softly. She instantly appeared in front of the little girl with a look of surprise on her face. She had thought that Gu Nan would guard XN air to the death and not let her find her so easily. He would even set up a trap around her. Was he careless, or did he not notice XN air's identity from the beginning? Mother! Luo Xin was even more surprised when she saw Luo Fei. Although she was young, she knew what happened in the Heavenly Palace. Her parents' whereabouts were unknown. It was great that Luo Fei could appear safely. Luo Fei held her in her arms, while Luo Jie stood by her side, smiling as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. As long as their daughter could return to them, everything would be fine. His sister had already obtained the power of the crystal. As long as Gu Nan dared to appear, he would definitely be able to defeat him easily. However, at this moment, neither of them noticed that a shadow had quietly appeared behind them, waiting for the moment when they let their guard down. The Tang family had become a slaughterhouse. Lan Si, who had completely fallen into madness, did not have any rationality when she killed people. She even forgot her own divine power. She was only using the power that Gu Nan had given her to kill. Unfortunately, the power in the small sword that Gu Nan had hidden was the part that represented a super strong physique. Unparalleled strength and speed, amazing physical resistance and recovery, these were the things that Lan Si currently possessed. She was like a fierce beast in human form, destroying everything she could see. She had even accidentally injured many people from the Tang family. Gu Nan Yu. Tang Xian, who was seriously injured, had come to Gu Nan's side. It's you. Long time no see, Gu Nan greeted her naturally. Tang Xian forced a smile and said, I thought you wouldn't recognize me now that you've reached your current position. Song Lian Dao Master stood behind Gu Nan and was similarly speechless. She couldn't understand Gu Nan's principles at all. He could easily kill old Mr. Pan, so why would he greet an ordinary extraordinaire like Tang Xian like an ordinary person? If it was because of old feelings, why did he completely ignore her earlier? Of course, she didn't understand that to Gu Nan, it didn't matter how strong an NPC was. Whether or not he was willing to greet them depended entirely on whether or not they remembered. Tang Xian was an NPC related to many quests, so she naturally had the qualifications to leave an impression in Gu Nan's mind. But that was all. It was also impossible for Gu Nan to take the initiative to help her. Just as the two women were having their own thoughts, Gu Nan's expression suddenly changed and his figure suddenly disappeared, leaving the two of them staring at each other in dismay. Within the white mist, the aura of a shadow quietly approached. He only noticed it when a sharp black sword pierced through Luo Jie's body. But it was too late. The pain coming from his back made him slightly shocked. The next moment, the majestic shadow precept suddenly erupted. The shadow sword, which was dozens of times stacked, almost instantly tore apart Luo Jie's precept. It invaded unreasonably, trying to completely destroy his vitality. Luo Fei reacted extremely quickly. She angrily reached out with her right hand and grabbed the shadow sword. Her right hand turned completely liquid and easily covered the blade. The shadow sword, which was clearly formed from precept, instantly melted more than half of it. Magic breaking attribute? Gu Nan transformed into his human form and looked at the scene in surprise. He had completely lost control of the shadow sword. It was as if the line of precept had been completely severed, and the shadow sword was quickly eroded. Interesting. A faint smile appeared on Gu Nan's face. He didn't care about the loss of precept. Instead, he was very interested in Luo Fei's right hand. He hadn't expected the two of them to have this level of precept when they returned. Luo Fei looked at him coldly and quickly supported Luo Jie, who was about to fall over. The damage from Gu Nan's permanent critical strike was something most people couldn't bear. Brother, are you okay? Luo Jie covered his wound with one hand. His eyes were full of murderous intent. I'm fine. Quick, kill him. Luo Fei didn't hesitate. She put her daughter in Luo Jie's hands and disappeared. When she appeared again, she was next to Gu Nan. World breakers controlled their own precept, so it wasn't strange for them to have their own uses. Gu Nan wasn't surprised. He just casually thrust his sword behind him. But Luo Fei didn't dodge. She extended her right hand again. Gu Nan's layers of shadows were all destroyed by her hand. It's useless. Go die. Luo Fei laughed coldly. If it wasn't for the crystal power being so overbearing, the siblings wouldn't have hesitated for so many years. They wouldn't have dared to use it against Gu Nan. It really is a break spell. What a shame. Gu Nan shook his head. It's a shame it's not yours. You don't have full control of it. That's enough to kill you, Luo Fei shouted. She hit Gu Nan's chest hard, and then, nothing happened. Luo Fei froze. Luo Jie, who was next to her, froze as well. Luo Jie hit again in disbelief. The liquid in his right hand splashed out, but Gu Nan still didn't move. The break spell element was very strong, but it was a shame it had encountered Gu Nan. This guy had once reached level 16 and was very familiar with the precept of the world. He knew that Han Sen had a skill that was the bane of the break spell element. That's impossible. Luo Fei's mind was on the verge of collapsing. She couldn't understand why the power she had obtained after suffering so much pain was so useless in front of Gu Nan. However, everything in the world had a natural counter. Even someone with Gu Nan's power could restrain it, let alone a mere break spell. Gu Nan smiled viciously. He suddenly reached out and grabbed Luo Fei's hair. The break spell element. It's such a waste in your hands, bang. Gu Nan slammed his head into Luo Fei's forehead. The terrifying force immediately knocked her out. A large bump appeared on her head, and Gu Nan carried her away with one hand. Luo Jie was shocked and angry. Let her go. If you have anything to say, come at me. The shadow sword slashed through, and the layers of sword tips instantly pierced through his heart, cutting off all signs of life. Luo Xian, who was in his arms, also slid down. The little girl was scared silly. Her face was pale and she couldn't speak. Gu Nan looked at her, then at Luo Fei. He nodded. Yes, you're still useful. Chapter 178. One break world was dead and the other was unconscious. It all happened so fast that no one in the white mist noticed. When Luo Fei woke up, she found herself hanging in a small, dark room. Her right hand had been chopped off, and the wound was still oozing blood. The pain from her arm was not enough to move Luo Fei. It was the scene in front of her that made her look like she was about to explode. Gu Nan had his legs crossed. He was sitting in front of her, and Luo Xian was on his lap. She was holding her severed arm. Tell me, Gu Nan said with a smile. He stroked Luo Xian's head. Where did you get the broken spell power? You. Luo Fei wanted to spit on him, but her daughter was in his hands. Based on what she knew of this guy, he would not let her go just because Xian was innocent. It is in Sky Palace, 3,000 meters underground, Luo Fei said quickly. She looked cold as if she had accepted her fate. Gu Nan nodded. Take me there. A moment later, Gu Nan brought Luo Fei to the underground of Sky Palace. It was where Luo Fei had combined with the crystal. It was not exactly a combination. That was because Luo Fei had gotten some broken spell power. The crystal was still there. Tisk tsk tsk. A broken spell crystal that is as big as a person. Gu Nan looked at the crystal in front of him and was shocked. Normally, a thumb-sized broken spell crystal was enough to make a broken spell weapon. But this one was taller than a person. If anyone suggested cutting it up to make a weapon, they would be cursed. That would be a waste of a good thing. Not bad. Gu Nan nodded with satisfaction. This was the first time he had gotten something from the outside world that could increase his power without relying on the evil god hall. Is it called a broken spell crystal? My sister and I have studied it for a few hundred years, and we have never seen a rule that is not affected by it. Why are you fine? Luo Fei, who was standing behind Gu Nan, could not help but ask. Although she hated Gu Nan, she was a break world person. Her strong desire to learn was what she was thinking. Perhaps it was because he had found something good, but Gu Nan was in a good mood. He replied with great interest, Do you want to know? Forget it, you won't understand even if I tell you. Luo Fei's face was dark, and she was gritting her teeth so hard that they almost broke. If not for the fact that she was no match for him, she would have stabbed him to death with her sword. Of course, Gu Nan wasn't making fun of her. Even if he did, Luo Fei wouldn't understand. It was Gu Nan's blunt skill that countered the Spellbreaker attribute. The reason why Spellbreaker was affected by the passive effect was because of the damage calculation mechanism. Only a veteran player like Gu Nan knew about it. The first thing he had to understand was, how exactly did Dharma Breaker achieve the effect of completely breaking the laws of nature? According to the player's tests, the explanation of the Dharma Breaker attribute was weakening the target's rule power by 100%. In other words, as long as the target's rule power exceeded 100%, or the weakening effect of the Dharma Breaker attribute was partially cancelled out, then Dharma Breaker wouldn't be completely effective. It didn't matter if it was a skill that directly increased the rule power or reduced damage from the outside world, it wasn't hard for the players to obtain it. Of course, not all damage reduction effects were effective against Dharma Breaker. If the damage was reduced through equipment, or if the principle was to create a shield on the surface of the body to reduce damage, it would be broken by the Dharma breaker attribute. Only a skill like blunt, which was based on the principle of Gu Nan himself and wasn't affected by the outside world, could survive under the Dharma breaker attribute. Such an extremely detailed game algorithm could still be used in this world, which meant that Gu Nan's earlier guess was correct. The rules of power in this world were the same as in the game, but there were many different manifestations. Ignoring Luo Fei's doubts and dissatisfaction, Gu Nan casually tossed her severed arm over. The arm immediately sank into the crystal and was quickly assimilated. It's already at this stage? In another few hundred years, it might become a law spirit, Gu Nan muttered. Being able to devour power of the same origin meant that this crystal had already developed a gathering effect and could automatically capture Dharma breaker power from the outside world. In fact, Gu Nan even suspected that this place was originally a Dharma breaker crystal mine, and because no one had mined it for a long time, it finally gathered and formed this thing. Gu Nan walked up to the Dharma breaker crystal and lightly touched its surface with his palm. Soon, a horrifying sizzling sound could be heard. That was the sound of Gu Nan's body being corroded, melted, and disintegrated by the Dharma breaker power. If an ordinary person saw this scene, their scalp would probably go numb. Luo Fei's scalp was also numb, but it wasn't because of this scene, but because Gu Nan was actually touching the crystal with his body. The two of them were the first to discover the Dharma breaker crystal, and they deeply knew how terrifying this crystal was. It could destroy almost anything that came into contact with it or even got close to it. If it wasn't for them holding it in place with a magical formation and reinforcing it every once in a while, the crystal might have already melted through the ground. But that guy actually touched it with his hand? A moment later, she saw Gu Nan retract his palm. His palm was already tattered, and even more than half of his bones were exposed. Countless tissues and blood vessels were also damaged. However, these injuries were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Power between level 4 and level 5. Based on his personal experience, Gu Nan roughly calculated the power level of this crystal. Among the level 4, it could be considered unstoppable. If a level 5 was caught off guard, they would probably suffer quite a bit, as long as they didn't have the corresponding countermeasure. If he could control it, at least for a relatively long time, at least, Gu Nan would have another trump card. As for how to use it, wasn't Luo Fei a good example? He could just directly fuse it with his body. As if reading Gu Nan's thoughts, Luo Fei spoke up at the most opportune moment. I can give you the method to receive the power of the crystal. As long as you let Xn air go. She gritted her teeth and then said, I can work for you for 50 years, and when Xin air grows up, we'll write off our debts. How about that? Gu Nan looked at her calmly, and in his heart, he really wanted to say that this was probably the mother-daughter flower that came to his doorstep. The next moment, the overlapping shadow swords appeared again, and directly pierced Luo Fei's forehead. Looking at her slowly falling body with a look of disbelief on her face, Gu Nan only forced a cold smile. Chapter 179. In the heavenly palace, Gu Nan sat alone in the hall, and in front of him was the magic-breaking crystal. Gu Nan pressed one hand on the crystal, and the dark shadow power continued to be channeled into the crystal, as if it was free, as if it had become a black ribbon. Luo Fei was too naive to think that a fusion method was enough to be a bargaining chip in front of Gu Nan. With Gu Nan's knowledge and vision, once he settled down to study something, it was not difficult to find the corresponding method. As for Luo Fei using herself in exchange for her daughter's safety, it was even more ridiculous. Not to mention that Gu Nan did not need her combat power at all, even if he really needed it. He could not trust Luo Fei. It was a basic rule that players could not recruit NPCs whose reputation had been farmed to the point of hatred. If an NPC really came to surrender, it must be a liar. After an unknown amount of time, Gu Nan slowly retracted his hand. This was his shadow power, which had been almost consumed, and he needed to rest for a while. Under his continuous efforts, the magic-breaking crystal's translucent interior was now filled with many black-veined patterns. It looked like a demon that had been locked in place. "Sir, the Qian dojo has been cleaned up, and all the opponents have been suppressed." Red Tail's figure slowly appeared behind Gu Nan and reported in a low voice. If someone compared the difference between Red Tail and before, they would find that the current her was less charming and more cold than when Gu Nan first met her. Gu Nan gave her and Lan Siqi each a small black sword, but the rules they represented were different. The power that Lan Siqi obtained came from the body of the evil god, so once she accepted that power, her personality could not help but become violent and crazy. As for the sword that Red Tail had obtained, it represented the law of shadows, which would make people cold and decisive. However, Red Tail's strength and temperament were far superior to Lan Siqi's, so she was much less affected. "Where's Lan Siqi?" Gu Nan still had his eyes closed and asked casually. "Miss Lan has taken over the affairs of planet Xianhuang, and the progress of the reorganization is much faster than before," Red Tail said more implicitly. A faint smile appeared on Gu Nan's face. He knew what Red Tail was trying to say. After Lan Si accepted the heretical god force, it was expected that his personality would change. As long as she wasn't as hesitant as before, the progress would naturally be faster. As long as a person had power, even if he did something wrong, there would be people who would do everything in their power to remedy it. Gu Nan also needed this kind of Lan Si. In the future, if she were to become his oracle and represent him to conquer the god nation, it would be a battle to the death, and she would not be allowed to hesitate. Seeing that Gu Nan seemed to be satisfied with this, Red Tail didn't say anything more. Instead, he talked about another topic. Over at the immortal devil world, the children of destiny have already begun sowing seed. It's going even better than expected. Red Tail seemed to be excited. "We've never seen a place so suitable for controlling luck." The providence of the immortal devil world was so active that they didn't need to do much. As long as they guided it slightly, it could produce a large number of children of providence. And when these children of providence grew up and killed each other, it would be time for them to harvest the final winner. Gu Nan only nodded his head lightly. Gathering destiny was a long-term job. The immortal devil world only increased the efficiency. He wasn't too surprised about this. In the past few days, for the sake of the magic-breaking crystal, he had even put aside his research on the immortal devil world. There were too many things to do. Gu Nan could only do them one by one. Fortunately, after reaching the 4th rank, there were very few people in the world who could threaten him. There was still enough time. After pausing for a moment, Red Tail said with a strange expression, "There's one more thing. It's news from the Central Star region. You might be interested." "What is it?" Gu Nan raised his eyebrows. There were only a few people in the Central Star region who were related to him. Someone caused a ruckus in the Xinghai Pavilion. It's said that one of them, Daoist Tianji, was beaten to a pulp inside the pavilion. No one knows if he's dead or alive. And after that person caused a ruckus, she could float away. No one could stop her. Gu Nan was taken aback for a moment, then he said with some amusement, "Is it that Buddha of all ages? Someone who had the ability to do this and would purposely cause trouble for Tianji Dao Master could only think of that girl. When she had just awakened, she could already fight him to a draw. If she was given some time to settle, her strength would definitely continue to soar. Tianji Dao Master must have been possessed. He had practically stepped on the Buddha of all ages to attain the Tao, then patted his butt and hid in the Star Ocean Pavilion, thinking that he would be fine just like that. He didn't expect that person to rush to the Xinghai Pavilion and beat him to a pulp. Red Tail nodded lightly. That person looked like a girl. She called herself No Return. Now, her name has spread throughout the entire star region. Even the surrounding big plains have heard of her. Tianji is courting death. Don't care about him, Gu Nan said casually. Continue to pay attention to the follow-up of this matter. He even secretly planned to go to the Shanghai Pavilion when he had the time. When the magic-breaking crystal was completely fused, he might be able to do what no return could do. Unfortunately, he didn't have any enemies in the Shanghai Pavilion. The Deep Sea King was one. However, with Zuozhua's words, there was no need for Gu Nan to go there. He didn't plan to go there. With his current cultivation of the 4th rank, getting involved in the game between the Star Masters was the same as seeking death. In the immortal demon world, a girl stood quietly on the peak of a mountain. The sunlight shone on her body, as if it could directly pass through. Beside her was a young man. He had a cold expression on his face. His eyes couldn't help but glance behind the girl, at a place without shadows. This is the ancient immortal demon battlefield. The girl spoke softly. There was no expression on her face. Buddha will find this place sooner or later. You just have to wait here for her. The young man's expression didn't change. Ever since he rose up in his youth, his life had always been smooth. After experiencing great ups and downs, he became more mature. Without the blessing of the power of providence, his power wouldn't be taken away. It was as if he had removed some kind of shackles. He felt like he was living for himself. He was Yi Chen, the former king of the Xianhuang Star's northern region. He stood at the peak of the sect masters. Ancient immortal demon battlefield. Can I trust you? Yi Chen was silent for a moment. Shui Yan was still expressionless. You don't have any other choice. That's true. It's my honor to be ordered around by a big shot. Yi Chen smiled self-mockingly and touched his nose. Shui Yan pushed him. Yi Chen's body was instantly shattered. Only his astral body was slowly dropped into the immortal demon world. She had spent a lot of energy to bring Yi Chen into the immortal demon world. That way, she could bypass the world's laws that required him to exchange half of his astral body. Only those who completely belonged to the immortal demon world could become the true child of Providence. Chapter 180. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, it was already 3 months after the establishment of the Standing Committee of the Mysterious Yellow Planet. It seemed that after experiencing that battle, Lan Si's whole person had undergone a transformation. From an ignorant girl, she quickly grew into an iron-blooded ruler, as fast as the speed of the organization's expansion. In just 3 months, the Standing Committee of the Mysterious Yellow Planet had become the well-deserved overlord of the Mysterious Yellow Planet. No one and no force dared to disobey the orders from here. Of course, it was inevitable that the subordinates would obey in public, but oppose in private. If an organization wanted to command its subordinates like an arm and a leg, it could not be done overnight. It needed a long period of accumulation. At the very center of the mysterious yellow planet, in a towering palace, the interior was painted white as if it was new. A man was lying flat on the operating table with his eyes closed. Reincarnation begins. Output the shadow power, begin to infect the soul. Drawing the third exchange pattern, transferring the soul, failed. The shadow power that had been continuously output seemed to pause at this moment, and then suddenly became violent, directly smashing the man's body. Gu Nan scratched his hair a little irritably. Failed again. The exchange process has been completely simulated. What is the problem? Fortunately, the fusion of the magic-breaking crystal is about to be completed, otherwise, these 3 months would be equivalent to doing nothing. Feeling the strange power that constantly emerged when his heart beat, Gu Nan's mood was a little better. 3 months passed, and he had been staying on the mysterious yellow planet. Most of his energy was only focused on 2 things: the fusion of the magic-breaking crystal and the method of soul exchange. The former was very smooth. With the strength of his evil god body, Gu Nan forcibly absorbed the magic-breaking crystal into his body. The whole process seemed uneventful. The spell-breaking crystal that Luo Jie and Luo Fei couldn't do anything to was like a piece of paper in front of Gu Nan. It couldn't resist at all. But the method of soul exchange from the immortal demon world was not so smooth. After 3 months of observation, Gu Nan had already understood how the world's source exchanged the soul of the reincarnated person, but his own simulation had failed again and again. Raw material, or location. Gu Nan wrote these 2 words in his experiment note. The difference between the exchange he made and the immortal demon world was these 2 points: replacing the source with the shadow power and not completing it in the immortal demon world. When the fusion of the magic-breaking crystal is completed, I will go to the immortal demon world and try it. Gu Nan gently closed the notes and made a decision in his heart. At this time, the palace door was slowly pushed open, and in came Red Tail. Red Tail and Lan Si were the only ones who knew where Gu Nan was and would report to him at any time. Many people, including Red Tail, were quite worried about this. If such a person were to take control of the mysterious yellow planet, it would not be long before this planet would fall into complete turmoil. Gu Nan did not care much about Lan Si's character. After all, many players were like this. Not to mention killing NPCs, it was not uncommon for them to go to the wild and kill players in a bad mood. Moreover, Lan Si's change in temperament seemed to be very good for the digestion of the godhead. Gu Nan's current sin value has reached 884 points. More than half of the increase of more than 300 points came from the first month. However, as Lan Si's cultivation reached a bottleneck, the growth of the sin value also slowed down. The potential of this godhead is almost exhausted. Next, only if Lan Si has a major breakthrough, the sin value may have a chance to soar again. But regarding the mysterious yellow planet, Gu Nan really can't just sit back and watch. He needs a stable mysterious yellow planet as a target outside of the white mist. He can't let Lan Si play with it. Now that the purpose of training Lan Si has been achieved, it is time to transfer her to the next position. Let her let go of the matter of the mysterious yellow planet. Didn't you say last time that there is some trouble in the immortal demon world? Let her go over there to help. Gu Nan said casually. The trouble in the immortal demon world was something that Red Tail mentioned to him not long ago. Simply put, the luck of that world is too active, so the difficulty of harvesting it is also much greater. A child of luck who only has a rating of 3 stars in the white mist, and who has grown for less than 2 years, often needs to send out nuance realm cultivators to ensure that nothing goes wrong. The rating of 3 stars corresponds to the level of the transcendent, and the higher levels of 4 stars and 5 stars, there are even fewer people who can deal with them. Fortunately, in the immortal demon world, there has been no downlord level of 6 stars. Even the 5 stars are only a few signs, and are eliminated by the people in the white mist in time. The situation is still under the control of the white mist, but it seems that there is a lack of manpower, especially the top cultivators. The closer to the 4th rank, the longer the cooldown of reincarnation, and more time is needed to recuperate the soul. This point, even Gu Nan can't avoid. After reporting the recent affairs, Red Tail quickly left, but Gu Nan's mood calmed down. The uniqueness of the immortal demon world is once again displayed in front of him. If he still can't detect something fishy, then Gu Nan has done so many missions in vain. Exchanging half of the soul, the luck is especially active. Maybe there is a mission? Gu Nan touched his chin. The intuition of a mission expert made him a little suspicious. But there is no need to rush. The most important thing now is to strengthen himself. After stepping into the 4th rank, because of the heretic god's body and the support of various skills, Gu Nan is almost invincible among the same rank. When he completely grasps the magic-breaking crystal, there is basically no one weaker than him in the 4th rank. But the 4th rank is not Gu Nan's goal at all. The imaginary enemy in his heart has always been the 5th rank, or even higher. After breaking through to the 4th rank, there is a fundamental difference between the 3rd rank and the 5th rank. There is actually not that big of a difference between the 5th rank and the 4th rank. The 4th rank requires the player to create their own rules, and the 5th rank uses the rules to build their own world. But before the self-world is truly built, and before the player successfully completes the first-class advancement, the 5th rank is only the accumulation of quantity, and it is not impossible to challenge those of a higher rank. At the very least, in the game in his previous life, it is not rare for players to use some abnormally powerful rules to beat the 5th rank NPCs to the ground. But then again, Gu Nan has actually seen abnormally powerful rules in this world. Chapter 181. The World of Immortals and Demons. 3 months had passed in the astral world, but nearly 3 years had passed here. It had been more than 2 years since the appearance of the Children of Fortune, and the people here had gradually become accustomed to this phenomenon. They even began to make use of them, just like the original mysterious yellow star. In the east of the mainland, in a secluded small courtyard in the Yen Kingdom, a young man walked quickly into it. Big Sister, this month's Children of Fortune have been captured, a total of 142 people. The young man came to the courtyard and said to the empty courtyard. The young man's name was Gu Qing, and he was the most worthy of the 4 words, rising star, in care for one's family during this period of time. Although reincarnation was officially prohibited by the astral world, it was indeed very useful for cultivators to promote. Since care for one's family secretly gathered people and organized them to carry out reincarnation, many people showed amazing potential. Gu Qing was one of them. He was originally unknown in care for one's family, and his cultivation was only at the innate realm, so his aptitude was not very good. But since his experience in the world of immortals and demons, his cultivation in the real world had also soared. A month ago, he actually broke through to the transcendent realm. As of today, he was the 3rd young generation of care for one's family to advance to the transcendent realm because of reincarnation. But even so, Gu Qing still did not dare to show the slightest disrespect to the Big Sister, he mentioned. It was not only because of the other party's accumulated prestige over the years, but also because her own strength far exceeded that of the rising stars like them. To put it bluntly, even if the 3 of them attacked together, they would not be a match for the Big Sister. As Gu Qing's voice slowly echoed in the courtyard, he did not wait for an answer. Instead, a strong wind came from behind him. Gu Qing suddenly turned around and punched fiercely, but what he saw was Gu Nian's expressionless face. Gu Qing was slightly surprised, but he did not intend to withdraw his fist, and even increased his strength. He felt that the Big Sister was testing him. But he soon regretted it, because he found that the strength of Gu Nian's counterattack was clearly exactly the same as his. In Gu Qing's senses, it was as if he had struck an invisible and soft wall. It perfectly reflected all of his power, moreover acting on his own hand. It was a very peculiar feeling, and Gu Qing seemed to have gained some sort of indescribable enlightenment at this moment. Not because of the physical properties of the wall, but because of the law of rebound. He rubbed his sore right hand. Is this the law of Big Sister? How terrifying! It's a new way to use it recently, Gu Nian said calmly and then looked at the sky. The effect of force is mutual? The effects of force were mutual, and so were life and death. Even though things had changed with the passage of time, she still remembered a certain someone's casual words and put them into practice. After all, he was the only person in the world who could recognize her laws. Gu Qing shook his head lightly and did not say anything. Anyway, this was not the first time he had known about his elder sister's strangeness, so he wouldn't be surprised no matter what happened. I know about the Child of Providence. Let's deal with it as usual. Take away the treasure of Providence if you can and leave it for our people. There seem to be more and more children of Providence? Yes. Gu Qing looked a little solemn. It's been growing recently, and it's almost 50% more than half a year ago. Also, we recently found out that there's an organization called White Mist that's also hunting for children of Providence. White Mist. Gu Nian frowned slightly. Don't get into conflict with them for now. Get Red Carp to investigate this organization and see if they can find out where they came from. Gu Qing responded and said, We also found a rather special child of Providence. How special? It's a person who calls himself Yi Chen, Gu Qing said. He's been in the world for more than 2 years, but we've only recently confirmed that he's also a child of Providence. Gu Nian fell silent for a while and said in a deep voice, The characteristics of a child of Providence are obvious. Why did we only find out now? We didn't find any treasure of Providence on him, but his cultivation is particularly fast. We only found out about it recently when he announced that he's going to build a nation that belongs to children of Providence. A nation of children of Providence. Gu Nian could not help but smirk. Then, how do you explain the fact that he doesn't have any treasure of Providence? Gu Qing's expression was rather strange. He said that he's reborn. Regardless of whether rebirth existed or not, it was an indisputable fact that Yi Chen had started from scratch in the immortal fiend world. It only took him 3 years to stand on transcendent level again. He even gathered some children of Providence and got them to gather around him. He even conquered a city in the middle of the mainland and renamed it City of No Return. After that, Yi Chen, who had been the king of the northern region for decades, was familiar with everything. Soon, he got into the rhythm of conquering cities and territories. In the following days, he led his subordinates to expand outward continuously. Before the 3 major organizations could react, he had established a territory. The Blue Dragon Hall on the west had the biggest reaction to City of No Return's rise. The reason was simple. It was because the current City of No Return was the place where Blue Dragon Hall thrived back then. It was where the Blue Dragon Hall's original headquarters was located. Even though the Blue Dragon Hall had changed with the passage of time, and even the headquarters had moved twice, the ancestral land was still memorable. We can't lose the ancestral land. The so-called children of Providence are just lucky people who are blessed by the heavens. What's there to be afraid of? Hall Master, as long as you give the order, we'll slaughter the City of No Return immediately. Hall Master, the noise in the conference hall gradually dispersed. Yan Xiaoxiao stood up with a tired face and stared at the empty hall in a daze. The anger of her subordinates was still ringing in her ears, but she suppressed it. Facing the confusion of her old subordinates, she did not explain. She could not explain. The generals below could be hot-headed, but she could not. It was easy to conquer City of No Return, but who would defend the countries and sects in the east if they sent troops rashly? Would you do it or should I do it? On both sides, the number of experts on either side was higher than on her side. Yan Xiaoxiao knew this better than anyone else, but she could not explain it to her subordinate. Could it be that she had gone to those countries and sects several times without telling them, to investigate the enemy's details? Could it be that the experts of those countries and sects were actually reincarnated, and their real strength was far stronger than theirs? Not enough, still not enough. Calculating the comparison of strength between the two sides, Yan Xiaoxiao sighed inwardly. I don't know when I can drive all these people out. If he hadn't stayed here, would he have become one of them? Yan Xiaoxiao looked far away to the east, her eyes a little cold. The next moment, she suddenly turned around, and a figure was slowly walking from behind her. I thought I would never see you again. A light smile appeared on her face. It was a smile that only friends would have.